Motion to, to open the work session, please.
Motion to open the work session. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, are we taping? Now we are, okay, great. Everybody, welcome to the work session of Tuesday, October 17th, 2023. It's gonna be an exciting one today, so thank you for tuning in. And first, we are gonna talk about consideration of a resolution adopting a negative declaration under SEQRA for the NG0 legislation. So I'm gonna just turn it right over to Sabrina and Eric over here.
Okay, do you wanna start?
I mean, just to introduce where we are procedurally, so the board, forget the last date that we had the substantive discussions, but we were scheduled to meet on this on, I believe, October 3rd to discuss adopting the resolution, and at that point on the 2nd, there had been written comment, the written comment period had been left open until October 2nd, and we received a substantial number of comments from the public, and there was also some comment from the planning board. So the determination was that time should be taken to carefully review that, which has now occurred, and that we are actually still doing some analysis of that, but we've made some significant or some revisions to the proposed negative declaration, some changes to the resolutions, but everything that has been provided by the public has been reviewed in detail. The board has also received from myself a confidential memorandum responding to some of the legal points that, we can certainly address some of those if the board has questions on them. But we wanted to, I think at this point, we want to take the board through the changes to the neg deck and the resolutions and answer any remaining questions that you have. And then we would anticipate the board voting on the actual resolutions and the approval of the neg deck or the approval, or however you want to proceed with respect to the neg deck, I guess, in one week, right? At the meeting next week. There may be some, based on this discussion, and I think there's maybe one or two more consultants, from the town consultant coming in that are going to be incorporated in the neg deck in the interim week. But I think we have done a lot of the analysis. There may be some additional analysis that could certainly be discussed before the meeting next week. But that's where we stand procedurally. And I think Sabrina is going to take you through some of the changes, and then we can answer any of the questions that you have.
So if you want me to go page by page like we did last time?
Yes.
Okay, so starting, I think in general, there was a look into the negative declaration, and previously we talked about a proposed action, and we've referred to the legislative change. So there's more, there's editorials in here that talk about the proposed local law and really continually bringing back this negative declarations point of being an assessment of the environmental impact of a local law. So on page 1, you'll see that change of adding proposed local law. And then really taking the blue underlines. I don't know if you guys I don't know if you guys have this document. There are blue underlines which really add more characteristics of the actual conceptual of the actual legislation, transit-oriented development on parcels and streets. This is language directly from the legislation, and it was important to really, throughout this document, tie in verbiage from the legislation into the negative declaration. So that's really what you're seeing on page 1 as the more substantive change rather than an editorial change.
Any language that was added is in the version that was disclosed to that's part of the public packet today. So
this is the packet, the version that is in the executive session is red line, the one that's in the packet is just for the purposes of our review.
I can speak to both. Just for those of you that are using the accepted changes versus the clean version as opposed to the changed version.
I think everybody here has the
You all have the marked up version. All right, on page 2 in the middle of the page, again, it is reorienting the relationship of what the legislation calls for. So specifically, there's a sentence that legislation calls for the implementation of green infrastructure practices. So again, this is adding more depth when it comes to the content of the legislation into the negative declaration. Then we're gonna jump a couple of pages. If you go to page 9, you'll see additional information that was received from the applicant, as well as information that was received from not only our planning board, but the Westchester County Planning Board. And you all received a copy of the correspondence from the Westchester County Planning Board, reacting to the most recent version of the legislation and the concept plans that were provided to them.
Right, and it was resubmitted to the county planning board just because there were some modification we felt that out of an abundance of caution, we wanted to make sure the county planning board had the final version of the law and the concept plan that we were considering, so that's where that.
And so I found some additional typos on this page as well, which will be made after tonight's meeting. On the following page, again, there's additional memorandums from the applicant's consultant and the town's consultant, which will be added. There's a highlight on the last bullet. We are anticipating a comment letter from Creighton Manning in response to public comments, making sure that we have addressed and are consistent with our review. We're gonna jump a couple of pages. Again, the changes that you're seeing between page 10 and page 14 are more editorial. On page 14, second to last paragraph, we talk about the incorporation of post-construction water quality control measures, what the legislation says and what the concept plans are incorporating and providing, and noting that the systems will be further developed through the special permit process. Again, this is legislation. We are anticipating this legislation setting forth a process where an applicant will apply for a special permit and provide the necessary documentation that can be analyzed to ensure consistency with this negative declaration. On the top of page 15, we talk about the steps that will be taken, the existing condition. What is missing here, and I discussed with both Jill and Eric today, is we have a situation where the town, it talks about the town on the bottom of the page, top of the page, we talk about the infrastructure and streetscape project, where we made improvements to the town's drainage system that have dramatically helped the flooding in relation to this property. Jill had mentioned to me that Metro North also made drainage improvements associated with their railroad tracks that have also helped to keep water off of this property. We have not seen flooding on the existing property since those improvements have been made. So,
Yeah, exactly.
knock
I was
wood.
very happy
Yeah,
after that
well,
last rainstorm.
but I also think it's important to note, our construction, our building requirements, our site plan requirements require the applicant to demonstrate to us that the water, if there is water on site, can be contained. Our regulations, our policies, our plans require the applicant to submit a downstream drainage analysis based on the amount of water that this property will put into the town's drainage system. Are there differences in the amount of water going into the system today versus what they are proposing? They are accountable, the applicant is accountable for controlling that water and not overbearing or flooding our drainage system. They will need to demonstrate that to the town engineer as part of site plan review so that we can ensure there's no downstream flooding impacts from development on this site. Today, there are no downstream flooding impacts due to that parking lot. During this process, the concept plans, the applicant has informed you there will be less impervious surface under the new development scenario than there is today. That means more water will be absorbed on the site than is being absorbed today. So we are through the site plan process asking them to prove that to us. And that's a distinction that needs to be made, because the legislation says you need to do this analysis. It's not assessing that analysis. So there'll be some additional language in here talking about the Metro North, the improvements that Metro North made to the railroad tracks in regards to flooding today on the site.
So we have a question, so they
Sure.
have to perform a downstream analysis once they start on the project? right, so.
They will need to do that
before.
downstream analysis before they start on the
What
project.
does that look like?
It looks like an assessment of when a drop of water falls, how much the system can handle based on the amount of water that is expected to come off that property. For example, if we'll do it real simple, here's the property. This is a rainstorm. This rainstorm will do one of two things. It will be collected on site and it will be immediately discharged into the town system if there are no controls on site to maintain it or to retain it, right? The applicant, they may have too much water coming onto the site that if it immediately releases into the town system, it's gonna cause downstream flooding. What will happen is they will have to plan as part of their development something to capture this water on site and attenuate or slowly drain that water at a rate that can be accepted by the town system. Okay, so they'll hold it for a couple of hours, half hour, maybe a day. And then it will slowly release so that our system doesn't become overwhelmed. And so that type of analysis occurs with every project that drains into the town's system. Because we can't be put in a position where our systems are compromised. During our streetscape improvement project, we upgraded all of our pipe network to handle future development in the hamlet. There is a breaking point. We know that just because we are in a basin, we are in a wetland, that no matter how much money we throw at the problem, there will always be flooding.
And how far away are we from that breaking point?
In this particular area, in this section, we are pretty far away.
Well, there's been no development since
Right,
those-
that's
that
the
work
thing.
was
Right,
done.
but this site is 100% impervious
Impervious,
surface.
right.
Right, you have an
today.
existing condition right now, so you have to take that into account when doing your environmental analysis, what the existing condition is. You're not dealing with a pristine site and then a development
And
on
cutting
top
down
of it, so
trees
that's,
or
you know,
covering over
Right.
grass, there's
It could only
pavement.
get
and
So
those-
arguably,
it's
it would
better.
get
Yes.
better
Right.
than it
Correct.
is now.
Yeah, they reduced the impervious surface by
Yeah.
4.4 thousand square feet.
Yes,
And that doesn't count the roofs.
it does not count,
Right, so
yes,
What would you say about the roofs, or would they be significant in reducing?
they could be, it depends how they're designed and how they're maintained. Again, we don't have any details, we have conceptuals.
Right now, you have
But
the,
the
again, you have the
appropriate
existing,
place to get those
right.
details is in site plan.
Correct.
and you have an existing condition that doesn't control it now, so that's,
I'm just
again,
saying
we
that
just
that
go
would be
back
in
to that.
addition to the 4.4 thousand square
Yes.
foot reduction.
Correct, and all of the gardens on the terraces on the second floor, those are all being constructed to retain stormwater.
Since we're now talking about the green roofs and things like that, in the next paragraph, what does "to the extent readily achievable" mean?
We can only get so far with technology today.
Okay, so that doesn't mean if it's not easy for them, they don't have to
No,
do
that-
it.
No,
Fair question.
it's not,
I
yeah,
just
no,
wanted to make sure I understood.
this does not let them off the hook,
Okay,
okay? They have to do the best that they can do to reach the goals as identified in the legislation.
thank you.
Sure. I want to point towards the bottom of this page. We struck the reference to the FEMA mapping as it was brought up to our attention that it may not be as accurate as it should be. I think it's important to note that we're not looking to replace it with another standard. The applicant will need to do their proofing regarding the flood condition of this site at the time of site plan. So rather than relate to something that may be out of date, we took it out, because it makes more sense to say the obligation is on the applicant during the site plan application submission. On page 16, under wastewater, you'll see a lot of strikeouts and rewrites. This is about our sewer system. We have existing capacity in our sewer system. There's two means for a development project on this site to address wastewater. It can go right into the county trunk line, or it can go into the town system. If it goes to the county trunk line, they deal with Westchester County. They don't even come into the town system. If they come into the town system, typically, in order for them to be accepted through our system into the county system, they will have to do something called inflow and infiltration, where they will need to do mitigation and seal up pipes and seal up different areas to ensure no water is getting into the sewer system. So we added language to put the inflow infiltration that the county will require in the negative declaration.
And who decides that?
The county does. It is a Westchester County requirement when they accept new wastewater into their facilities, into their districts, they require the inflow and infiltration.
No, I mean, who decides whether they go directly to the county trunk line?
The applicant will. The applicant will.
And do we have any say over that?
We do not. The applicant's preference would be go directly into the Westchester
And that would
County
be
system.
our preference too. I would imagine that would tax
I don't
our-
think it makes a difference to
I
us.
Tax
think-
them more?
Doesn't I'm sorry to interrupt, doesn't a piece of the trunk line actually go on their property?
Yes,
Yeah.
So it would make a lot of sense.
but there are, because of it may be because of where that connection is, the type of connection that is there, they may be unable to make a direct connection to the county trunk line. And the county may say, you need to go into the town system to come into the county system.
That's the part on the northern.
Correct, where they had to move the building. That's a
Right, 'cause they
big
were
county
trunk
truck line. And typically you can't connect to a trunk line, you need a lateral to connect to a larger trunk line. And the town system is more like a lateral, it's a smaller pipe than that big county trunk line.
And do they have to do the infiltration analysis in either scenario or only if they connect?
They'll have to do in either scenario because they will eventually
Because they have in the county either way.
connect to the county. And then there was just some rewording, reanalysis, you'll see some strikeouts on the bottom of page 17. Due to the size of the property, a stormwater pollution prevention plan is not necessarily required because of the land area of disturbance. It's under 5,000 square feet. That section of our code will still apply because they will require erosion and sediment controls. But we did remove the requirement of the stormwater pollution protection plan. We just referenced our law. Our law will dictate what analyses must be performed to meet with the code and the state code.
Right, that section only applies when you're disturbing a certain amount of land, the requirement for a stormwater pollution protection plan only applies when you're actually disturbing a certain amount of.
Exactly, it's an acre
undisturbed
of
property.
disturbance, except for areas within the New York City watershed where it's 5,000 square feet. So because this is under an acre, it's not an automatic stormwater pollution prevention plan. That is not to say that measures that would be contained in a stormwater pollution prevention plan will be required by the town engineer, as is routinely required in downtown development. On page 18, there's a paragraph under air that talks about the construction activities and the impact to air quality. It talks about dust generated through the construction practices, and it talks about fugitive dust. Now, the applicant provided information during this process regarding how they will build components of the project off-site and bring them on-site, reducing the active construction on-site. So this paragraph addresses that this is not unusual in regards to a construction project. So there will be a time of dust in the air, but it does not rise to an adverse environmental impact. And Eric, feel free to add in whenever you feel.
Yeah.
On page 19, it's just again the changes regarding focusing on the property, re-examining the legislation, inserting legislative words, refocusing the concept plans. And then page 20 of 45, there weren't really any changes other than when the comparison was made, it duplicated some things. On page 21,
Sabrina, I'm
yes.
sorry, it looks like there's some text that's covered.
Yeah.
This is because of the comparison that was done. In the clean document, it's clean, it
Oh, okay,
doesn't
fine.
show
Right.
up.
Yeah, this is just because of the way the red line was
Red line,
produced
okay,
comparing
got it,
the
like
original
adding
document.
pictures,
Right,
got it, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, but there's nothing,
Cause I was gonna say, I didn't see it in the other document.
it's not, and I checked that, cause I saw that and freaked out a little bit. On page 21, we are in the section regarding aesthetic resources. There's some additional language that talks about specific design standards that are included in the legislation for redevelopment projects. And this is a quote directly from the legislation. And we need to close that quote. Again, trying to build in more of the language from the proposed legislation into the negative declaration, so it is clear that this negative declaration relates to the legislation.
Right, and just with respect to aesthetic resources and some of the public comment that the reliance on the special permit standards could be considered to be a condition or a conditional negative declaration, which is one of the issues brought up. I think it confuses the analysis with respect to a condition declaration. I've laid out what's required to demonstrate that something is considered a conditioned negative declaration, which is permitted when there's an unlisted action in this, as in this case, just some procedural requirements. But the fact that the legislation has special permit requirements and standards that are applied does not mean by doing the analysis, doing the special permit analysis, that you're conditioning this approval on on various requirements as part of this particular project that you're analyzing. I've brought up in the past, and the concern was if this exact project is not built, if there's an alternative project, it would be analyzed under the special permit standards, which is why you put in a special permit. You didn't do an as of right, you're allowed to build this. You said, no, you still have to go through the special permit analysis. That's why that's brought up in the neg deck, to address the concern that this board raised with potential other analysis other than this one concept plan. And, from our perspective and our legal analysis, that there's nothing improper about that. It's not an improper condition negative declaration. It's where you would have where you'd say, applicant, you're required to do A, B, C, and D in order to avoid these environmental impacts. You're required to do that. And it's not part of the SEQRA process, which hasn't occurred here. But I think the public analysis kept saying, well, because you're building in this special permit part of it, and saying you're gonna rely on that if there's an alternative, an alternative design proposal, that somehow makes this impermissible, improper. And from our perspective, that's not a correct analysis. So I just wanted to lay that out for the board right up front when we're talking about this aesthetic resources here.
Eric, I just have a question about these condition negative declarations, just
Right.
in general.
Yeah.
Because I think what you laid out, so that would be, I think, conditions that would be set forth by the town board for mitigation after the negative declaration.
Right.
That would be.
Or as part of your negative declaration that weren't, that the applicant didn't, that weren't sort of jointly, arrived at through the SEQRA process. It's something that you're typically requiring the applicant to do, like, oh, you're required to cut off the fourth floor of the building in order to avoid this impact. And the applicant had no interest in doing that. That would be a condition declaration that could only be
But it
issued,
would
so.
not be, as pertains to conditions made prior.
What do you-
Conditions met, so if the town board asked for modifications prior to.
Yeah, during the SEQRA review process,
during the
that's,
process,
yeah,
that
that's
would not
fine.
be, so that was the distinction,
Right,
the general distinction that you made, I just wanna be sure I have that.
yeah, if it's agreed and then that's part of the project, then it's no longer a condition. They've agreed to make that change, that's no longer a condition.
Right, so it's kind of
then,
like the timing of when the condition would be met.
It's that and how, and whether,
Prior or-
exactly, and whether it's and how it's imposed on, during the process. But I think the way it was brought up was that having this analyzed under the special permit standards somehow in the future, in order to say, look, you can control the type of design and development of an alternative project is somehow an impermissible condition. We don't see that as being the analysis under the condition neg deck, so.
Okay, on page 22, we struck the paragraph relating to open space outside of the Chappaqua Hamlet. It really wasn't relevant for this negative declaration because we were talking about the hamlet. On page 23, it was just a rewording of the relationship to that section of state law that establishes the critical environmental area that was added in. On parking on page 24, we added a discussion of the Saturday morning parking analysis that was done by the applicant that was missing previously. And we also added reference to our town consultant's review memorandum confirming the applicant's analysis of parking, sufficient parking. On page 26, again, it's just refining who said what, clarifying where the analysis comes from. Same thing on page 27, and on page 28, we took out the discussion of the roadway improvements.
And just for further, Craig Manning is continuing to review some of the more recent comments that came in, the more recent reports that came in, the AKRF and the ones from the public to give their assessment of it. I know Sabrina's been in communication with them, and that'll be any analysis they have that needs to be incorporated will be incorporated in the next week. You also got comments from the county planning board with respect to the parking issue, which they didn't have an issue with respect to the proposed parking, the way that the legislation handles parking issues. So that's another thing that we now have as part of the record in this proceeding.
The next largest change is on page 31, which talks about the character of North Greeley, and again reiterates the NG0 special permit legislation's details regarding specific site design standards. And this was really important, again, to include what the legislation talks about in regards to height and landscaping and all those the specific details of the special permit that are not found within the existing zoning and that are pushing the development to reflect what is being reflected in the concept plan. There were no changes until the top of page 34, where we took out some general conditions. It was in the wrong place, so we struck it from this section of the code. And then page 35, just clarification of what the goal says, and same thing on page 36. This is the consistency with the comprehensive plan, going back and revising the goals to mirror the language of those goals. On page 39, under socioeconomics, it talks about the AFFH requirements and the 12% requirement as reflected in the legislation, and then highlights the 20% that is being proposed. On the top of page 41, there's an analysis of height of the building and the fire department and the functioning of mutual aid. That's mentioned there. And then air and noise, there's language added in regarding federal and state air emission permits. And then a discussion of underlying uses, classification of underlying uses under air, noise, and odor. That there's nothing being proposed here that's not unlike what is proposed under the existing zoning. On page 42, there's a new section on human health. We thought it was important to add in a section that talks about human health exposure to new or existing sources of contamination. It summarizes the New York State DEC's environmental remediation database. It talks about the conifer site and the brownfield cleanup on the conifer site at 54 Hunts Place. And it further talks about compliance with the scope of activities needed to satisfy minimum requirements for identifying potential contamination in soil and groundwater on a project site. So we do have an obligation under New York State DEC to ensure that projects that come in for development are not developing on contaminated sites. There's a mention of the phase 1 and the spill database regarding 136 North Greeley Avenue, and what the phase 1 says, and that a phase 2 will be conducted, because if there's contamination on that site today, it will be detected and they will be required to clean it up once they know about it.
So I have a question about that, because that site is directly uphill from 50 North Greeley, right, and everything flows
From what you see.
downhill. Right. So is there any way to get the applicant to undertake an obligation to remediate the site once they open it up?
The phase 2 will require them to investigate whether there's any
I
contamination
mean,
on
assuming
the
that they
site.
find it, of course, I mean,
Yeah, they are,
So
they have to.
they
Right,
have to.
owners
so
are
they
not,
won't
right.
be able to, say, declare bankruptcy and abandon it,
No,
right, that,
no, what they will enter is the New York State DEC brownfields cleanup program, and the
so they
state
won't
will
have a
clean it up.
choice, it's,
Or
It-
the state will pick it up.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
the owner's obligated, if they do enter bankruptcy, there are other measures to address that contamination, certainly.
I just wanna make sure we're not gonna be stuck with
Oh,
open
no,
land
it is
and
not our-
contaminated
no.
air.
No,
No,
it's
we
not
don't
our
own it, but I
property.
just wanna make sure it's not left in our town in that state,
State,
that there
got it,
are
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
assurances now
There
from the
are
state
assurances, and
that
that's
it
what the
will-
state that's what the state cleanup programs do, the spill remediation cleanups do.
But the phase 1 gives, for the neg deck, gives you the ability to say, look, there's no adverse environmental impact that you're aware of that's gonna be, that should prevent you from finding that there's a negative declaration on the site at this time. And that's the standard of review for this, so that's.
And
where we
every
are.
developer in New York State has to comply with this, right?
Sure.
On a
Yes.
piece of property, so it's not
So
like
every
it's gonna
development
be
in the
new to
hamlet
them or
will be
anyone else.
required to do this, absolutely.
How many phases are there in a situation like this? I know we already did a phase 1, there's definitely a phase 2 coming,
And there might
If
be a
there's-
phase, there's a phase 2A and B, I think,
depending on the
depending on what they
results.
find.
Right.
And then after that,
Then I
if
think
it's
that
remediated,
if there's a problem, then all that analysis, the phase 1 and phase 2 stop and they go to remediation.
Okay.
And then DEC will spend about a year approving a plan to clean up the site, and then they'll go through a cleanup program. And the question will be, does that how will they clean up the site and move forward with the building? If you recall, 54 Hunts Place was a cleanup process, and the basement of Hunts Place, the ground where the garage is, that was built into the cap for the brownfields cleanup when they capped the property. So depending on what happens, there'll be a plan put in place that will remediate the site and allow it to move forward, unless it's catastrophic and they can't develop on it, which I
there's
don't
no
see happening.
reason based off of the phase 1 analysis to think that that would happen.
Correct.
Right.
Just for my own,
Yeah.
when the Hunts Place project and all, and was that revealed during a phase 1 analysis that this was
That
gonna
was
be a
revealed
cleanup site?
long before
Yeah.
anything ever started. That was listed as a contaminated site before
Anything happened.
they bought it knowing.
Okay.
And also knowing that they were gonna get money to clean it up, so that was part of the
Yes.
enticement to build there.
Got it.
And that is it. Those are the changes.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
And then we had some relatively small changes to the resolutions themselves, just to address the additional materials that were submitted, some of the additional commentary that was made, that we have examined, you know, the public comments, that the board has looked at them and taken them into account. But the resolutions primarily are the same, other than the additional materials and a couple of commentaries in those resolutions, so. And look, obviously, if anything develops in the next week, we'll be prepared to address that, you know, before the board actually has to actually vote on the neg deck and, you know, decide whether to approve the resolution, so. And we'll keep the board updated as things progress.
Yeah, and I found some typos and things that I wanna add in, so you'll get a new version of this.
Okay,
Thank you.
sounds good. Thank you very much. I
You're
know it was a lot of things. Thank you.
Okay?
You're a loser.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Next week, we'll see. Here.
Alright, so you're in time for your,
I'm at 6:30.
oh,
So
I don't know.
I'll see you in a little while.
Wow, so then you won't know what to do with yourself. Okay. So we do have a number of administrative items that we can go through. Alright, we've got our payment of claims, for checks dated October 18th of 2023. Are there any questions from the board regarding any of our payment of claims? Documentation? Next, we've got the police attending 2 conferences. We've got authorization to hire in parks, that's actually in your executive session package as well.
Thank you, Mary.
Alright,
We've got authorization to purchase materials for the rebuild of the waste wash water recycle pump for the Millwood Water Treatment Plant. Say it 3 times fast, it's yours. We've got an authorization to approve Newcastle United for Youth contract. So just to remind the board, when it comes to Newcastle United for Youth, they are the happy recipients of $125,000 grant. In order for them to spend their money, the expenditure needs to be approved by the board, but it is not town money that's being spent, it is grant money that's being spent. We've just assured the federal government that we will be utilizing the same approval process that we do for any of our monies for them. So this is for a training conference that they went to for mental health that's already been attended and doing well so far. The next is the proclamation in support of the people of Israel. The board had already approved this informally, but you know, for the record, so that we could actually read it in, we should do that.
Great, totally, yes.
And last but not least is the authorization to purchase the SCADA system for the Millwood Water Treatment Plant. This is their operational system, it's a sole source provider. It's pretty expensive, but we actually approved the upgrade in the 2023 budget. We've got $150,000 from 2023 and the remaining $160,000 will be funded in 2024, so.
Yeah, they're splitting the project.
That's all we have for our board meeting. Does the board wanna take and actually because we've got the resolutions, we can go through them and you can read the full resolution?
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Who wants to start? You want to
Yeah.
start?
I can start. I move to approve the payment of claims in the amount of $667,821 and 1 penny listed on the summary pre-check writing report and detail voucher detail report, both dated October 13th, 2023. Checks will be issued and mailed to each claimant listed on Wednesday, October 18th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I move to authorize the chief of police to attend the New York State Intelligence Summit on November 16th and 17th, being held in Bolton Landing, New York, for the total approximate cost of $153.50.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I move to authorize a detective to attend the New York State Police Crimes Against Children seminar on November 13th through 17th, being held at the New York State Police Academy in Albany for a total approximate cost of $816.50.
Second.
All in favor?
I move to authorize hiring Bosco Castillo as a parks laborer at the annual salary of $50,119.29, effective Monday, October 23rd, 2023.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye. I move to authorize the purchase of materials for the rebuild of the waste wash water recycle pump for the Millwood Water Treatment Plant from Hayes Pumps, Inc. at the cost not to exceed $15,750 as per the quote dated September 8th, 2023.
Second?
All in favor?
I move to authorize the town of Newcastle approval of the contract with the National Council for Behavioral Health DBA, National Council for Mental Wellbeing at the Newcastle United for Youth for the Teen Mental Health First Aid Agreement in the amount of $2,347.50, effective August 11th, 2023.
All in favor? I don't need to read it.
Proclamation in support of the people of Israel. I move to adopt the following resolution. Whereas the United States of America was the first country to recognize Israel as an independent state on May 14th, 1948, when President Harry Truman issued a statement of recognition following Israel's proclamation of independence on the same date. And whereas on Saturday, October 7th, 2023, during the Jewish holy day of Simchat Torah, Hamas terrorists launched an unprovoked surprise attack against the people and nation of Israel, representing an act of terror and resulting in the largest mass slaughter of Jewish people since the Holocaust. And whereas the stated goal of these terrorists is the destruction of the nation of Israel and genocide against the Jewish people, and whereas the town of Newcastle stands in support of Israel and the Jewish people as they fight this war and chase the terrorists out of their country, and whereas Newcastle is home to many individuals of the Jewish faith and of Israeli descent, many of whom have family in Israel fearing for their lives, and whereas many in our community, whether or not of Jewish faith or heritage, stand as allies with Israel and the Jewish people, now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Newcastle hereby proclaims that the people of Israel have the unwavering support of the people of Newcastle, New York, and it is further resolved that the town of Newcastle condemns the violent acts of war perpetrated by Hamas and its collaborators against the state of Israel. And it is further resolved that the town of Newcastle affirms Israel's right to exist and to defend itself against acts of aggression and terrorism. And it is further resolved that the town of Newcastle mourns the loss of innocent lives in Israel and strongly condemns all forms of terrorism, recognizing that the depravity of the terrorist actions of Hamas and its cohorts are beyond comprehension, and we grieve with the families of those killed, injured, and still missing. And it is further resolved that the town of Newcastle stands in solidarity with Israel and the Jewish people, and offers love and compassion to Newcastle's Jewish community during this difficult time. And it is further resolved that the town of Newcastle will always stand against hate. And it is further resolved that the town of Newcastle stands firmly against anti-Semitism in all its forms. And it is further resolved that the town of Newcastle reaffirms its commitment to fostering a community that is welcoming to all, one that is respectful of different perspectives, and one that condemns brutality, marginalization, anti-Semitism, and hatred in all their forms. And resolved, the town of Newcastle encourages its residents to support one another during this difficult time, and to condemn brutality in all its forms of hatred, marginalization, and anti-Semitism.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Jeremy, you wanna take us home?
I move to authorize the purchase of SCADA and PLC upgrade system, including GE RX3i PLC system hardware, spare parts, and services including drawings, schematics, configurations of ProfitNet Genius Communications Gateway, phase installation, phase startup, and field testing from NIC System Support Corporation for the Millwood Water Treatment Plant at the cost of $310,000 in accordance with the quote dated September 18th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Alright,
Move to adjourn.
Nice try.
to take a break for 5 minutes. Can we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're still
Alright, we're
on,
gonna
so,
be on pause for 5 minutes.
okay.
Okay. Alright, welcome back. So we are going to start the exciting process of our town budget. So we're gonna, Rob, we'll turn it over to you to talk about our 2024 budget.
Alright, so we're here this evening and on Thursday morning to discuss the tentative version of the budget. There's 3 versions of the budget. The tentative version captures all of our meetings. The department heads meet with Joe and I. The column that says 2024 department head stage, that's what the department heads are requesting. And really Joe and I didn't change that. Sometimes we make slight changes. This year we didn't. 2024 admin stage just reflects what the department heads requested. After this, after you meet with all the department heads, it then becomes the town board's budget. If there are any changes that you suggest after this version of the budget, it will be included in what's called the preliminary budget. And on November 8th, we will adopt the preliminary budget and set the public hearing. Or were we doing the 5th or were we doing the 28th?
Hold on.
Fifth of,
Oh,
December or the
28th.
28th.
Yeah,
28th, okay.
The 28th of November.
Yes.
So
that's what
the public hearing will be on the 28th of November, and then we would adopt the final budget on the 12th of December. So that's a little bit of the timeline. You're gonna hear from all the department heads, beginning with the court clerk. So if you're following along on the PDF version, it's page 54, or even if you have a hard copy, it's page 54. And I do have it up on the screen here, and it's being shared for anybody viewing the Zoom at home.
Thank you. Welcome.
Welcome, hi Lisa.
Hi. How are you?
Good to see you.
You too.
Switching glasses. And I will, I'll just start out, and I'll mention that typically the first section of everybody's budget, which is personnel, those are salaries that are calculated by myself, typically based on the union contract, which in 2024 provides for a 2.25% salary increase. And the police, when we get to that, is a 2.9% salary increase in those salaries, and that's been projected into the salary line for 2024. It would also reflect any increases in steps if they were moving through steps throughout there's 5 different steps in the CSEA contract. Kathy and Di are each at the top step. So this just reflects the cost of living increase there. And I think that's the longevity is also something that I calculate, and again, that's based off of union contracts. So, Di, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, I guess the only other question may be overtime. Kathy and I spend a minimum of 5 to 6 hours every Thursday running the court. We are both on call 24/7 for any arrests or arraignments with the new laws and the bail law. We are to assign attorneys for arraignments immediately, get counseling, get the judge in, to handle all the police agencies that operate out of Chappaqua. Most of our criminal cases come from county and state police. We obviously don't have facilities to hold anyone that's arrested, so we try to get them done as quickly as possible. Sometimes that is at 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. I've been paged in Rome, Italy for arrests. like I said, Kathy and I are on call 24/7 with this work as mandated by court administration for the state. There's just two of us in the office. We handle everything that comes our way.
Wow, thank you.
You're welcome.
How have your collections been on tickets? I know in the past there's been difficulties. How is that?
I'm gonna turn that over to Kathy.
Well, post-COVID, we've caught up to what we used to do before COVID. The laws have changed in New York State where you can no longer suspend someone for failure to pay. So I see a little drop in money. We collect between, let's say, 280 and 350. We have been 350 a year. This year we're in the fours. Last year and this year we're in the fours because of the parking program. That's really boosted us up, let's say, another $100,000. But the money that we can collect, we now have to file a civil judgment against that person. And I would say we get about a 2 or 3% return on that. They really, it's not a big enough threat and you can't be suspended anymore. So that money just kind of sits dormant at the county. It's all filed at the county.
We're very curious as to, I mean, this is a small part, how the state of New York is handling that, because that of course has become a state law where they're not suspending driver's licenses for failure to pay, which is very interesting because we see people that have 6 pages of suspensions on their driver's license, which we would consider a very dangerous driver. So it's interesting how that's been allowed to happen. Tim Idoni, the county clerk, happens to be a neighbor of mine. And when we were mandated to start filing these civil judgments with his office, we warned him because he didn't even have an idea that this was coming down. Every court, people that don't pay after
90 days.
90 days, these civil judgments are being filed with the county clerk. So there are, I don't say that, millions probably, if you think of all the courts in Westchester County.
My other quick question as to that is what percentage of those tickets are Newcastle residents?
Not very many,
So that's a problem
not very
too.
many, yes.
We process about 3,000 to 3,500 tickets a year. The only way to increase the money would be increase the volume of tickets issued, but we have no control over that. I have no control who commits a crime or who's speeding. So there's no
Now that I have the money,
control over that.
County police and state police are the Taconic and the Sawmill
Right.
is what really generates our traffic. On the other hand, we've gone to a new parking system this past year since July of 2022. And I'm here just about 20 years, and I would say that the average collection for parking in this town was about $70,000. And with this.
Last year we were 65 and this year we're already up to 126,000.
Wow.
So it's doing very well.
Yes.
That's just
Enforcement,
that's just better identification of people who are parking.
And a larger parking enforcement crew.
we had no parking enforcement for about two years. And one of the issues that we had was non-residents using our train station. And so that is being, the permit system, I should say, is being enforced now. It keeps the lots orderly. It allows for parking for our resident, convenient parking for our residents because we have a large 3-hour parking zone. So I would have to say, you know, Kathy and I, we've been doing this a long time. You know, we're seeing finally enforcement and orderliness pretty much. in
I'd
the
also
lots.
give recognition to the parking company that we're using now, FBS. They are very diligent in sending reminders out and the prices do increase every 30 days and they send out fine notices continually
And I think they've been very successful in collecting more money for us.
And they are used by many of the towns in Westchester, the state, I should say. So, you know, Kathy and I, we go to court clerk conferences, and so we know what other towns are doing. We, you know, take into consideration, we bring things back, and so.
So I'll just point out across this top line is the revenue that we've seen. So when Kathy talks about they bring in 300,000 to 400,000, fortunately that gets knocked back a bit because we do have to remit New York State's portion.
Right, that's what I
Okay.
collect, that's
Yeah.
not what the town
Correct.
gets.
So if you look across the top and look and see what's happened since COVID, so 21, and obviously COVID hit in 2020, and nobody was on the road, the officers weren't writing, and the residual is you know, what is it, several months before you finally get a court date these days, right?
Right.
So
Months.
yeah, so that 2021 is residual of 2020 and the general slowdown, and you see, you know, we only netted 138,000. In 22, we went up to 224,000, which is a huge jump.
Mhm.
We're currently sitting at 252,000, and I think that's only, it probably does not include September yet, even in this number. So you probably have 4 months to go to add to that. Conservatively, we've projected about 265 for next year. It most likely will be higher. I mean, that's a variable number, and when there's a variable revenue source, we tend on the conservative side. But you know, prior to COVID, we were up around 290, 300,000 that the town realized.
Actually, the 2020, the year that we were closed, or everyone was closed down, we actually did very well because we had a plea by mail program that we worked, and the town prosecutors worked with us. And we actually collected money from years prior and the current year. That was a good year, surprisingly. We only wrote 1,700 tickets, but we collected more money than we had in a couple of years, so
Then the
it worked
state,
out well.
then the state stopped allowing us to do the pleas by mail. We issued a directive that was no longer allowed,
Right.
so.
Can you say what it was prior to COVID again?
Around 300,000 or so. In the high twos, 290s, 300,000.
What you
What we
collect.
realized.
For 2018, we collected 477,000. 2019, 501.
Could have been
and-
over 300,000.
And then that gets chopped up. It's,
Yeah.
you know, the whole chart is broken out by what offenses, how much money you get for that offense. And there's a big, long formula. So I think we get about,
The
I would
state
say
takes a
maybe like
surcharge on every ticket.
Right,
And then there's an amount that they pull depending on I
about
think what the charge is.
40% of whatever it is, or
Yeah.
45%,
Yeah.
depends on what tickets are written and what they are disposed at. Speeding tickets, we only get $15.
Yeah.
You could charge someone $450 for the ticket, we get 15. So it's a formula they have, so you never can tell exactly.
Rob, sorry to, you know, where are the revenues?
45.
Page 45.
Okay, I was on 50.
And Rob, what's the increase in the contractual services?
We'll jump back to the expenses right now. We just kind of
Okay.
sidetracked into the revenues. Bottom of page 54, the increase in contractual from 28 to 32,000.
They were,
Okay.
some of them were state mandated
Yes.
increases.
We're mandated to have Spanish interpreters at every court session, and we also have court reporters. And the interpreters, the court administration approved an increase of 25% with the interpreters, and we are reimbursed $25 per session when we're paying about 300.
300, $400.
The county reimburses us $25, so it's a big expense. Excuse me, actually, we're mandated to have the Spanish interpreters, but if there are defendants or hearing impaired defendants, we have to provide their services as well. Sometimes they range to about $700 a court session that that we're paying, but
And
like
that's
I
also
said,
your court reporter is
Yes.
paid out of that line as well.
yes, and the court reporters as well.
Were we recording? I thought we've had a court reporter for a while.
We've had a court reporter for always,
For the interpreters, so very good.
but the interpreters we've had for a very long time now too. Excuse me.
Okay, so just their expenses, their salaries went up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions from Justice Court?
That,
That's it.
We know you two are the real
Have a
bosses.
good night.
pardon me?
We know you two are the real bosses.
Thank you for your time, appreciate it,
Thank you.
Good night.
have a nice evening.
You too.
Good night.
We're gonna jump over to the assessor next, the financial numbers start on page 77.
77?
Yep.
Just kind of
Right here.
What took you so long?
Hello.
What took you so long?
You had to
Good
actually
evening, everyone.
stand up once, walked out of the room.
Okay,
All right.
Ask him anything, go ahead.
Hi, Josh.
good evening. I say every year, salary and paper clips.
You know what you don't say though, that John McGrory said at each budget meeting?
This is the best town board I ever worked for.
Not to throw you under the bus,
Not
but
to- and I
that's how
do-
John started
Okay, and I do
for
believe
probably
that-
20 years.
Yeah, every year for 20 years, and I do believe that Dave Rambo used to come in with homemade
Apple pie,
pies.
yes he did.
Now you tell us these things.
I'm just throwing it out there, just no
Next
pressure.
time. Sorry, next time.
Always next year.
Alright, just saying. Okay.
Okay, so if you'd like, I can just touch on some of the highlights, namely the increases. Okay, so we have contractual increases to the salary line, which is 0101. That goes hand in hand with the longevity increases. If you go down to 0420, under data processing, it's about a 4% increase year over year, just a standard escalation of contract. The training and instruction line is sort of an eye-popping 53%. That's a little misleading because my training comes out of, the bulk of my training comes out of the conference and travel. But since I did that remotely this year, that line is charged.
It's also fairly insignificant in the whole scheme.
Yeah.
It is, but when I saw
Percentage
the
increases a lot, but it's
53%,
like
$450.
Yeah.
But we do see the
Right.
numbers.
correct. Moving along to 0490, we had 2 additional BAR members, Board of Assessment Review. So I increased the line item for that. They're paid a stipend of $400 per year. And of course, in addition to getting to work with me, they get to have dinner as well. So I increased the food budget line.
That's on page
Yes.
79. Yeah, jumps over to the assessment board of review.
Okay.
And last but not least, if you jump to 1964, looks like it's page 24.
Page 80.
Looks like it's page 80.
Mine says 24, so I'm gonna go with you on that one.
That's the KVS printout, but
Yes.
Okay.
the bottom of the PDF or the,
Mine says 23.
Yeah, mine does
Yeah.
too.
yeah, that's the KVS printout, but the bottom of the page on
Is
the, or the
Okay.
PDF file should show 80.
No, I'm with you on the 23, it's fine.
So we increased the line for property tax refunds. We've got a couple major cases coming down the pipe, and so. I know-
One more page,
That's on page 81.
Okay, thank you.
125.
And I know
Yeah.
Rob he likes to talk about
Yeah, going back 10 or 12 years on the property tax refunds, we kind of always leave 100,000 in that line. If you look at 21 and 22, they were 88,000, 76,000 respectively. in only 2 years out of the 12 have we exceeded 100,000. One of those was SG's tax cert from probably 16 or 17.
Yep.
And then before that was it Riverwoods, one of the
Yep.
developments was a large one. So those were the only 2 times we exceeded it. So 100's been a pretty good number for us. Some years were as low as 25,000, 20,000. But Josh knows of some upcoming certs that will probably cause us to bump that number up, so that's why we're doing it.
Correct.
Any questions?
No?
Did you see the name?
Did I see the,
Name.
I did not see him. I did bring some
Yeah.
papers.
So, we just have a matter we'd like to, does the board have any additional questions for Josh? Otherwise, we're gonna sneak into a very quick executive session, just to speak with Josh about one matter for a minute, yeah.
Alright, so I need- Alright,
Hey, hello.
hello.
Good evening. Would you like me to just do an opening statement?
Go for it.
You just tell us.
Everybody does their own thing,
Ladies and gentlemen.
however you wanna go through it.
Okay, well, I'm here tonight to talk about the development department's budget. Just to refresh your memories, we are really 4 different divisions in the town. We're the building department, the engineering department, the zoning office, and the planning office. So we all work in tandem with each other. We have one large budget category called engineering, and that is where we have all of our office supplies, a lot of our licensure. I can go through each one, or if you're curious about one line or another. Between this year and last year, there was about a $14,000 increase. $11,000 of that $14,000 was due to CSEA increases. The remaining $3,000 roughly was really us being subject to changes in the cost of supplies, the increases associated with supplies. We had additional licensure and software increases, printer ink, paper, that type of thing. So there's really nothing that stands out over another in the sense of increases in each category.
So we'll talk about the personnel because that is a little bit of a change from last year.
Yep.
So the salaries, as we talked about, there's salary increases contractually. There are staff in the development department that are not at their top step yet, so there's that. There's the change, the new position, which is Miguel, who's at a higher salary. He did not replace Kellen, but his salary spot replaced Kellen, but he makes a higher salary than Kellen did. So there's some increase there in the salary line.
Right.
In the stipend line, we've included a $15,000 stipend in the event that we're able to use
Terry.
Blank.
Terry is the engineering technician. So this year, we were able to obtain an assistant engineer and Terry, who is the engineering technician. So there's 2 support staff to the town engineer in our office right now, which has been a big help as far as completing projects.
Yes.
Awesome.
But this stipend was going to be for code enforcement
We were
capabilities.
We were looking at training Terry to undertake more code enforcement responsibilities. We've always looked to maybe increasing staffing in the building division to include code enforcement. It's really something that the town board needs to decide whether or not you want to undertake a staff person dedicated to code enforcement. Currently, that is that responsibility falls within the building inspector and the assistant building inspector. If it's a site infraction, it falls within the town engineer's office. We do not go out and look for non-compliance. We usually get phone calls or we see it when we're in the field. Having a dedicated position for that changes the game a little bit.
How often do you find non-compliance?
A couple times a week maybe.
Yeah, and it all depends what you're talking about. So you're talking about signs during election season, you're talking about leaf blowers during, this is what buries, no pun intended, like Tom and Steve Davis are building inspectors, during peak building season.
Alright,
So they're getting pulled one way or another, so the idea is that maybe Terry could shoulder some of that and go out,
he's already on site, on construction sites, looking at construction, that's what part of his job responsibilities are. So if we were to train him to have some of the code compliance credentials, then he can double team when he's already on site.
And that would be over and
That'd be very
above what
helpful.
his responsibilities,
Responsibilities are.
what his job title is. So that's where the stipend would come in for doing
I
something
think that's great.
outside of his job title.
Right,
Yeah.
and it's additional hours as well.
Yes.
So-
So
And the
we're
assumption that
toying
it's
with that.
whole Flackwood will make us the money back plus.
Oh,
Right,
absolutely.
but also we're just trying to be responsive to our
Yeah.
residents who are asking us to, come out
Cause
and
what
take a look
happens
at these
now is
things
he'll
and-
be on a site and he'll notice something, he has to go back, tell the building inspector or call the building inspector, let him know, and then the building inspector's coming to the site.
And
So
we are
it
getting
really-
a lot of residents complaining.
Yeah.
The construction happening here doesn't seem like isn't compliant, and then poor Tom has to go out and it's
Yeah,
happening a
Tom is
lot.
very busy in accommodating the public.
Well, it seems like that's a weight we could take off them pretty easily.
Yeah, if we,
Yeah.
And-
yeah.
Well,
and
it's just easing the burden a little bit, it will never
Yeah.
completely take the weight
Yeah.
off,
But-
because he's a unique individual.
So
Um,
that's one option for that
yeah.
position. Another option might be to hire a part-time person. And there are funds in the part-time line, that covers right now Robbie, our fire inspector, it covers Matthew, who's doing our scanning. And there's funds in there for a part-time building inspector that role Bill Mesquil filled over the last couple of years. Bill is not doing that for us any longer. But there are funds there because we may, and Sabrina and I talked earlier today, she's kind of assessing her staff to find the right position. So
With the responsibilities that we have
Yeah.
and really trying to maximize the availability of personnel monies to cover as much responsibility as we can. And that's taking a little longer than I had anticipated, but we're well on our way. We
What's
have
the
a
most
plan.
cost effective,
What do you mean, what's the most cost effective?
hiring a part-time or, giving
Stipend.
someone a stipend, which would increase
Well,
their
we're-
I
salary
think it depends on,
benefits?
with the stipend, it depends on the current responsibilities with the person, right? And his desire to take on more responsibility than he currently has.
Because wouldn't that increase the benefits, whereas a part-time would have no benefits?
it would
It
increase the
would.
benefits
It-
slightly,
It
but
does, he has a 40+ hour job right now, right? And so to achieve that training takes time, to then take on additional responsibility takes time. Record keeping for that, because he's out there on one thing, he may see another thing, we would need to clearly differentiate in accordance with county civil service titles and tracking, time spent. So he needs to decide whether or not he wants to do that.
So would you have the additional monies in both lines, or would you be just?
right now, yes, because we're not certain, we may need both of those positions,
Correct.
part-time building inspector as well as the code enforcement
Correct.
capability. If we decide, if that's somehow decided in the next 2 months and we could remove it before the final version of the budget, that would be okay.
And I'm going, no.
That would be great, but if not, it would provide a little cushion in the budget for next year, it's not.
Oh, we're so close to the tax cap, I think every penny.
So we can talk a little bit later about the tax cap. The tax cap, really, the problem isn't in the general fund right now. The problem is all the special districts that are causing the problem. So whatever's in the general fund,
Right,
a
that's
few
increased.
thousand here or there is not affecting, you'll see that the tax rate for the general and highway fund actually goes down slightly, because of how I'm locked in with the tax cap. So, in a rare instance, normally, yes, that would affect it. In this rare instance, it does not.
Okay.
So if.
It would affect probably how much fund balance we are allocating.
So if you get a chance sometime between now and Thursday, just take a look at the budget message, because what it is basically, it's like what do they call it, a clip.
Executive
It's a summary.
summary
It's an executive
Yeah.
summary, that's a perfect way to do it.
Of the 273 pages here.
Yeah.
That boils it down for
That
you.
boils it down, so it just sort of explains what our, the challenges we were presented with this year and how we were able to, Rob was able to take in, you manipulate the budget in such a way that we stay within the tax cap and still are able to do everything that we're supposed to do. It was quite a feat this year.
This was, I will say, there've been some easy years, there really have been.
This was not one of them.
This was the most difficult of the, I guess, 13 budgets that I put together. For that reason, it was the most difficult. We've had, typically in years past, we've had numbers, the tax-based growth factor, we've had a significant number that kind of added to the amount we were able to use. We had significant rollover from prior years. And the matter really, in some years, wasn't staying under the cap as much as it was a tax rate increase that was palatable to the residents. So this was a different year.
Rob, I don't understand how there was no growth factor, right? It's 1.0, I mean, with all the building going on and the renovations, how could there be no?
It had to be offset by changes in the, I guess, the tax certs and those types of things. So it's a calculation the state gives us, they don't really share their exact calculation with us.
But a
It's a
building
published
addition
number.
is not indication of growth.
Yeah.
New
I thought
housing
sometimes it
units,
is.
new housing units are an indication of growth. New commercial building construction is an indication of growth. Somebody doing an addition on their house is not an indication of growth under the calculation of what the state requires.
And the townhouses, Chapel Crossing, was
They
that
have already
too
been
early?
counted.
That was early on.
Yeah, this is a number that's published in July and it probably even has a 6-month lag on top of that, so it's.
Yeah, you'll see our fees, the fees that we collect for building additions, new houses, all of the fees that we generate. There has been a tremendous increase in regards to fees associated with the 91 townhomes. And as we issue the building permits, and I think we're at about half, maybe just over half,
Yeah, I think
issued in
we're
building
authorized up to
permits.
60 something this year.
65. And we get fees when they come in to apply for the building permit so that they can construct, and then we get fees for COs. We're more than halfway there with them. So we'll see a little bump with them, maybe next year, but not a lot. And then the rest is just what we see day to day coming into the office, which is about even with what last year was. I don't see a huge drop. I think we are definitely increasing, just the cost of construction is increasing, and our fees for building are based off of cost of construction. So, I don't know if there's anything else we wanna highlight, or if anybody has any questions.
I'll jump down a couple lines, Sabrina, and we'll just highlight you and I talked earlier, hold on, let me get there. 104 and for Jill will be 36. This is the planning, and I just wanna highlight a couple of the lines down towards the bottom of this section, the town board consulting and master plan consulting, that are kind of under the planning, and we don't necessarily use this money every year. This can be used next year, I think, for the visioning, if we so choose. These are funds for the implementation of the master plan and any of the goals there. So
Right.
if there's any studies or consultants required in conjunction with that, that's where those would be charged.
Right, and for example, we anticipate a $3,000, $2,900 contract with a geographic information systems consultant. The group that does our tax mapping, they also do different mapping for us. They did a tax, parking map for us most recently. They may help us with some of the wireless mapping that we may need. So we have an ongoing contract with them, that's coming out of the planning line. In addition, Rob said sometimes we use the money, sometimes we don't use the money. Not using the money in last year is enabling us to finish scanning, or to get closer to finishing a complete scanning of our historical records. We have had to purchase new software to replace old software to house our historical records. And we will be at the point, by the time we exhaust the the software conversion and the 2 additional scanning projects that we have, where all of our records will be available digitally, which is phenomenal. It was something, and I think I mentioned it last year when we talked about the budget, it was really what set us apart from other municipalities when we were going through the pandemic, because we had access to any building permit or some board approvals on any property that had ever been constructed up to 2014. So our challenge right now is scanning 2014 to current. We've had the part-time scanner who has been scanning records since we brought him on
last year, I think,
last
right?
year.
Yeah.
So we will be completely online with all of our records. And the next step after we get that done would be the online permitting.
Wow.
Wow, that would be
Great.
amazing.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna lie to you, it's a couple years off, so don't take away my pots of money here because it's been luck. I'm like, Rob, if we don't use it, I can get the project done. See that come? That's a sweetener there for you.
And the last line here, the Chappaqua Crossing Legal, those have been fees that the town has actually, for whatever reason, associated with Chappaqua Crossing that wasn't reimbursable by the applicant. So we've had about 20,000 or 25,000 in that line for quite a few years. And a couple months ago, Keenan being advised we didn't need to put the money in that line anymore, so we've taken that out.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Everyone's wrong.
See, I bring you nothing but sweetness.
Any other questions there?
Alright, anything else?
Thank you.
No,
Thanks.
You're welcome. You're welcome. On to the planning board.
Fun.
Meeting. Always is.
Enjoy.
Alright, recreation. 7, we're actually running a couple minutes early.
The budget usually runs pretty,
Pretty,
I was
it
saying,
does.
one thing that kind of runs on time, it's
No,
It's
no,
kinda
no, no,
straightforward.
don't say that out loud.
not gonna work.
No, we have easy ones next.
Yeah, I will say Thursday morning, you have the chief and you have Bart, and
That's
those are,
bigger.
these are all really, rec is the biggest one that we're doing tonight. Sabrina was probably the second biggest one. Everybody else tonight are really small, you know, 5,
I think
6,
if anyone's
10.
gonna watch, they're gonna wanna find out what roads are getting paved next.
They aren't gonna find that out in the budget.
Stay tuned,
Yeah,
Thursday morning.
Exactly, right? I bet you we tease
8
it,
a.m.
we tease that out, we may get people watching.
We want
Join
meetings.
us.
Exactly.
How many views?
Yeah, and then you'll spend the next 9 months
Answering
explaining
to
to
that.
people that aren't
Didn't
getting
mean
their
that.
roads paved, why they're not getting their roads paved.
What page is rec on?
He's got a lot of narrative that goes to, we go to 130. So 133, how about that, or
Okay.
Jill,
51.
51. And
Who's presenting?
Except Christine's gonna put yours.
what I didn't do, I think my graphics are really boring. And I actually looked, but I just got so bogged down with the budget and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I was actually looking at some software.
I think you do the dollar
Publishing
bill.
software or something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's in my public hearing, the dollar bill.
I love that dollar.
Well, I love the dollar bill. I stole that from somebody I saw it one year. I do go and look at other people's budgets and see what they have.
It's good. It gives you. See what everybody's doing, learn from each other.
It's not flashy.
It's not bad.
I just wanna put everyone to see.
What's your name of country?
No, I know. You literally could have. Welcome.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, Christine.
Hi.
If I stand there, one here, one here.
Okay.
So you'll take.
Yeah.
Alright.
So, hello, you guys.
Hi.
Hello.
Good to see you, Mike.
Hey.
All right. Rec department.
Recreation, so like, probably if you just wanna go through your budget and go through the highlights, if you have any significant changes, good or bad. Or any large budget lines that you wanna talk about.
Okay.
Explain, you have the largest budget that we'll see tonight, so probably line by line is
Yeah.
No
is
pressure.
not necessary.
We'll try to keep it in the time frame now, we'll keep it short. Thank you for having us. I am actually going to, still a little tough for me to talk. So I'm gonna put the spotlight on Christine tonight and let her go through the budget. I will jump in with any questions or any other points, so feel free to ask. But Christine, the floor is all yours.
Okay. Alright, just starting with the, go page by page if you like, the rec admin line. The one that jumps out the most is under printing and publishing, so that's where we have it, we wanna replace some of the signs at the parks. So we added some money in there to do that.
And the Gene George had part.
Gene Craig.
Yeah, thank you, Gene Craig and George.
Yep, community center, art center as well.
Yeah, will be one of those sites.
Is there a sign there now?
No.
Oh, it's the, okay.
No, so.
Alright, any other questions?
The contractual services?
Went from 23 to 30,000.
Oh, capture point went up.
Oh,
Yeah, the cost, and that's what we use for
that's the
registration.
registration system for the
Oh, boy.
software.
that went up.
Unfortunately, that's a common theme, a lot of the software costs are going through the roof right now.
Right.
Remind me about the civic plus thing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Talk to us about equipment. Exactly, nice and that.
Oh, yep, sure.
Is that you moving on to parks now?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
For the 115% increase?
Sure, so some of the equipment that we were hoping to purchase for next year is a top dresser for our fields. And
So
that,
what's a top dresser?
So,
I don't use it on my feet.
It's for the grass field, basically what it does is it helps us, it makes it more efficient to put the seed and fertilizer down, on the soccer fields. Right now, we basically have, it's almost the size of a handheld, that we do all the soccer fields and the outfields and the baseball, like baseball fields with. So this will just cut the time in half and make it a lot easier for the guys to get through all of that stuff in the day instead of taking multiple days, we can do it in 1 day. So it really, just from an operational standpoint, will make a big difference for us.
And how long does a piece of equipment like that last usually? Years and years and
Yeah,
years?
you'll get 10 to 15 years.
Great.
Another item that we were looking to hopefully purchase is water wagon. We wanted, right now, we have it, we wanna be able to put it on trailer, thank you, so then if we're not needing it, we could disconnect the trailer and still utilize the truck. Right now, we lose a truck because the water tank is on the back.
And the more important part is the tank now that we have is starting to fail. So we keep fixing it every year, but we're getting to the point where, you know, we could probably squeeze a couple more years out of it. But we get it, and if we're gonna replace it, our preference would be to have one on a trailer, instead of in the back of the truck. So that when it's not in use, we can still use the truck.
So-
And do you think this water wagon, the one we have now that I've seen, do you think that can last another year?
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan's usually pretty good at patching things up and getting it work, but we've had an issue with, you know, this year was the motor. The guys had to repair it a few times throughout the season, because it gets a lot of use, as you know. I mean, the truck's out almost every day, Monday through Sunday. So you get, short answer, yes, we could probably get another year on it, but you know, the last 2 years we've had to do repairs on it, to keep it running.
And Rob, what's the cost of that?
That's about $60,000.
That's the
Well,
$60,000
no,
one, or
No, the water wagon
It's
is
12,000.
12,500.
Oh, that's
Well,
within, okay.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it's when in the equipment round, so the top dresser is about 15, the water wagon is 12,500, and then the sander for our truck is 7, under the equipment line.
Oh, is that the better estimate that you got, the 7? I thought it was 8.
No,
Well,
it's higher, the
Yeah, that was
estimate is
our early
higher,
guess,
Yes.
but it's about 9,500.
yes.
Then the
So what's
vehicle
that?
is that rusted out,
Rec 19 is the one that the whole bed is.
Yeah.
Rusted out. Rec 19,
19.
which is the
They
truck.
number the truck, so it's Rec 19 and
Yeah,
literally it's gonna come right through, it's what we
It's-
said.
yeah, I said one day, I saw it around town, I said, what vehicle is that? He said, that's the one I wanna replace. Yeah, it probably needs to be. One thing I'll point out about these equipment lines, I talked to Ike, and this kind of holds through, Bart has a couple items too, that we've included in the 2024 budget, but as we get to this point in 2023, and I'm looking at the results and revenue's looking pretty decent this year. I just gonna check the other side expenses and make sure we're where we should be, but I may give the okay to buy some of this stuff this year or give the recommendation to the board to give the okay to buy some of this stuff this year out of this year's budget with some excesses, and that would save us in the budget for next year. So again, that might offset the amount of fund balance we would allocate. So over the next couple of weeks, I'm gonna continue to do that. I think Ike's identified a couple of pieces of equipment and the upgrade of rec field that we're gonna try to get in this year. He had a fantastic year at camp, much better than anticipated revenue wise, so that gives us a little cushion there.
Awesome.
Also, by the way, your guys did a fabulous job with the flowers again this year.
Oh, thank
Yeah, they did.
It was tough.
Thank you. We got a good crew. We got a good group of guys down there. Any other questions with parks?
Those are purchased every other year, is that correct, the uniforms?
The uniform and boots went down.
Is that the one that you guys buy?
Some of the clothing is.
Every other, but there's.
No, it's usually, if not every year, it's pretty close.
Well, DPW only replaces every other year.
So
Yeah,
you're not on their schedule?
we typically, whatever, I don't know what
The gentleman.
yeah, we usually pay them back off of their
Yeah, I mean,
stuff.
if you look like in 22, we didn't purchase anything, in 23 we did. And then, yeah.
Alright, so we're hiring a new art center instructor.
He's on the train, he should be here in about
sorry, I have community center up next, but,
Yeah, there wasn't much from the community
Community
center,
center,
no big changes there. Art center, we're not hiring a new instructor,
we wanna increase the
Well-
assistance.
right, and we actually, the art center instructor is for the summer camp program. And we actually, for whatever reason, missed it with the budget last year. So it's just, we're putting it back in. It's just when you that art instructor line is for the summer camp. I know you were speaking of the part-time help
Oh, yeah.
is, I'll let you talk to that in the assistance. But yeah, the art center instructor is for the camp, for the summer camp.
Yep, and then the next line, for the adult assistants, they've been, I think, at 16 for a little while, so if you want to bump them to 18. And they all work just a few hours a week each, so. And then the art center.
Next one we have is chat pack, but
Yeah, I can talk a little bit to chat pack just because that doesn't, it's in the rec in the budget because kind of for the state codes, the way they set it up, that's kind of where it should be, but it's not really under Ike's jurisdiction. Kind of Jill and I kind of are managing that, I guess you could say. If you look at the top line, the part-time help, we bumped that up a little bit last year. I don't, I know that I wasn't aware of Victor, who is managing, or he's handling the facilities and the lighting and the sound there. So we bumped that up just a little bit to reflect him, so that's Lisa and Victor. We do, I think, get reimbursed on the revenue side for Victor.
For Victor, we
not?
do, yes.
Yeah, that's factored into the rentals for the vice, but does have to show somewhere on expenses. The big jump is down at the bottom line is utilities. So in the past, prior to us owning the chat pack, we never had to pay for electricity. That was still covered by SG. So we got a nice shock when we took over this year and received our electric bill in January, and it's really pretty high. So we've had to bump that number up.
Are the rental fees high enough
No.
to compensate for
We
that?
should look at that when we look at the fee schedule to update, upping the rental fees. Well, and then hopefully we're gonna just rent out the whole theater to somebody and then they'll cover all of that.
So, I mean, I think we really should have a dedicated meeting or time in our agenda to discuss chat back as a whole, you know.
Yeah, I feel like.
We're looking at the budget now, which we should, but I think we're just missing the whole picture still.
I agree.
Yeah, so.
I have a lot of questions that are
Yeah.
not budget related about it, so it'd be good to have a chance to discuss.
Yep, and we have the Friends group, I know, Jill, you were trying to schedule a time with them
Yes,
to come in.
it's gonna be November, so we'll have to figure out which
Is
one
it-
works.
Is it possible we would have a discussion first?
Sure, we can do.
Yeah, we can do it, same time, same day.
Yeah, I think it'd be good if we discuss before we met with them.
Okay. We'll do November, okay?
Thanks.
And I'll reach out to Michelle to find out what her availability is.
Okay, next to the special programs, Christine, maybe you wanna talk about the co-sponsor programs, what a huge success that's been for us over the last couple of years, and really, I have to give Ike and Christine a lot of credit because this program has just taken off since they've come on board. The co-sponsor is a program where we're running programs with outside vendors, and it's an 80-20 split, so you see revenue on that side too. The town gets 20% of the revenue. Did I say that right?
Is that like
Yeah.
the Great Ninja offering programming in the
Yep.
park like that?
Yep, and some of our programs, like chess has been a big hit where we've had a huge enrollment and we had to offer another class. Busy Girls for like this session, I have 3 classes going, and in the past I've only had 1. Fiddleheads Cooking is something we took on in 2023, and she offers it 2 classes on Monday and 2 classes on Wednesdays, hitting both middle school and elementary school age. So those are some of the examples of the classes that have really been taken off. We have Kids Rock, Kids University, Luke, he's got a following. If you don't see him at the community center, he's probably in one of our parks performing, and people request him for birthday parties, and he's just
Luke Montgomery?
Yes.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yep, so he's got a huge group, 20 plus kids always signing up, so with
I was
him.
just chuckling because I'm so out of that.
I
I think it
So
sounded
well
like
beyond
Kenny
that.
Green when we were kids.
Yeah, Kenny Green's still at
Jared Hill?
no, one right down here, where Roxanne Kaplan, what's right on Hunt's Place, the daycare.
Oh,
World Cup.
World Cup. He's Kenny Green's at World Cup.
Wow.
Yeah,
The
so
man
a
is
lot
like
of,
perpetually young, sorry.
Yeah, still around.
so a good portion of our programs are that co-sponsored, even when you see Skyhawks on the basketball court running it, or US Sports, those are all examples of.
it's a huge win-win. I mean, that allows us to have a really diverse array of programs, and the town's making money off it.
Yes.
It's,
My daughter's in the cooking class with fiddlesticks on Monday. She loves it.
Oh,
loves
good.
it, and it's full, I think, right?
All
Most of
her
the
skill.
programs are, our numbers are.
And where did she do her programs?
At the community center in the upstairs
Kitchen.
kitchen, yep.
Yeah, we're basically
Tom
trying
Nichols
to,
is thank
with this programming, we're really trying to put all of our facilities, to the max that we can, in the space that we have, so. And it really works out well with staff. It allows us to do more in the staff that we have.
Yeah, like this
It
fall,
works out really well.
I was pointing out to Ike, I was really excited to look at the programming, especially both art center and community center, but specifically community center. We have 3 programs going on at the same time. We're even utilizing the downstairs. So we have, maybe dance or I forgot what, it's probably dance at 4:00 in the mirror room. We have cooking in the rug room, and then we have like robotics downstairs or busy girls. So it's like, to Ike's point, it allows us to program, but it doesn't just put us in one spot. So it's been nice being able to do this.
For these types of programs, are most of them like pretty close to capacity?
Yes, to the point, we had open up spots, like busy girls, I started off with just one offering and I have 3 classes going. Probably the 3rd class only has 8, but the rest all have like 14 and up. Chess, we had to open up a whole nother time slot. We even brought in like a new program called Spanish speaking, and we had to offer 2 different places for them to meet. So yeah, it's been nice to see some of those new programs really taking off, and those are new programs for this year.
It's great variety too.
Yeah.
And,
Just before you leave this page, just talk to me about the development of the disabled. What do these monies represent? And what do we offer?
So this is our partnership with Northeast. And what this allows any of our residents, youth residents that need special services, they can go to Northeast because of this partnership. So for a reduced or lower cost, they will, and Northeast provides that programming for them. If we are. And we lead on Northeast, at least in the past, we didn't have to do too much last year, but with some of the kids that come to camp that need additional services. So we partner heavily with Northeast throughout the year, so that's what that money's.
and they also loaned us a bus for the senior program
For the
while
last,
we were.
the last year.
Yeah, they really have helped us out. Almost twice a month I borrowed one of their buses to take seniors on trips. So it's been nice to be able to offset the cost there. Good partnership.
Any other questions with special reps?
Nope. Youth athletics next.
I don't think there was anything too significant in this line as far as changes go.
No internships.
Yeah, is that is that a change?
Oh, those are summer interns.
Yeah,
That
past
like
few
a-
years pretty much since COVID we haven't. This year we did share an intern
Christina.
with Christina.
My intern, and then we were able to, days where I didn't need them, they were able
She was
to
great.
use her services. So
We have kind of a short window with the intern where it's beneficial for us. It's usually, it's all the camp admin work. It was very helpful for Brittany. So it worked that when the intern wasn't needed in Christina's office, we were able to keep her busy.
And it's hard for some of the offices because the people the department heads are in and out, that type of thing. So in my office, we're more regular hours and we can work with the
I
other
think we
departments.
found with interns too, some of the departments have more project-based stuff that might not cover the entire period. So it's beneficial to bring somebody in and maybe
Share
share
them.
them.
Yeah, so that worked out well last year.
So it comes out of your budget?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but I was.
Good, yeah, no, I just wanted to know where.
Share with everyone.
I wanted to know if like there
It's all
was
in the
no
general
need
fund.
for the interns or if.
Yeah, no, there is, and I was actually gonna talk about it in mine, but I definitely think there is a need. It's just, I think, difficult because you can't typically just sit them down and say, go. Right, there's certain jobs that you can, once you do it, okay, you can go the next 2 days, but then we have to sit with you one-on-one, and that's where it kind of, sometimes.
If we
can
have like
be more
specific
demanding.
projects that they could really help out with,
Yeah.
it's great, but keeping somebody busy full-time for 6 weeks is really
And and also, you know, the goal of it is an internship. So when they come to work, I don't believe that we're had them there to file, right?
Make
So-
copies.
Or make copies. So I want it to be value add on their side as well and teach them about local government and give them like overview and so they understand something, they come away with something more than I worked those hours.
Yeah, like one time in the past, you know, they were getting like the iPad and or the GPS thing and they were able to walk the parks and it was mapping that and
The
that's
trails.
a trail. So that was really kind of a neat experience for someone doing an internship, so.
Yeah, and I think Sabrina did it with like the outflows.
The outflows, yeah,
That
that
was
was,
really-
that was a neat
That was
presentation.
great project.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the things I do want to touch on before we move off of youth athletics and Christina is the under rental expense, special projects for CCSD. Just that they're increasing their daily rental fee.
The school is increasing their daily rental fee.
Right,
Yeah,
so
From 8 to 85, is that the?
So from, basically
It
it's
was
going from
600 to
600 to 612.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So that will jump up, I mean, we have $20,000 budgeted, so we'll still be okay. But just so the board is aware, it's gonna jump up to just over $18,000 now it's gonna cost us to use the school for Todd's camp next year.
Yeah, have we heard anything from them? I mean, we asked them, we had a joint meeting with them and
No.
said we're one of the only municipalities that pays for use of these facilities, other than of course like janitorial or whatever you need.
So
Or-
no, so
crickets. Yes.
Yeah. And they're for a couple more weeks, so
So it's
I
over
would
600.
make sure.
What's the line?
Do we know who's taking over?
0020, last one on page 141.
Alright, but the school board needs to get back to us on that, it's crickets.
Alright,
Maybe we can send a follow-up email.
Since we're going through this now.
Sorry, I just wanted,
No,
I didn't mean to,
Thank, no,
I
thank
just
you.
wanted to make you
Thank you
aware
for
that
putting it.
that cost us
Christine, what
every
line
month.
is that?
That is the 00
It was
73,
special-
10,
yes.
490?
oh, no, 0530, 0020.
Yeah, it's right at the bottom.
Oh,
last one on page
oh, the last,
59.
so not the rental expense, the.
No,
Not
no,
one
no,
right below that.
yeah.
Got it.
So the rental expense is what we pay for basketball, our basketball league, and that covers the custodial fees for,
So this is CCSD too, though?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going up.
So just to explain something to me, so this is custodial fees for during the week or weekends?
Weekends.
And custodians would not normally work on weekends?
That's a hard one to answer. I
It's
don't know
just
what
a,
their schedule,
it's not a gotcha question, it's
Yeah.
just a genuine question.
I think they have staff on, we've been told in the past they've had to bring extra staff on, there's been different reasons, but there's always been a rental fee over overtime. And we do, it's absorbed in our registration fees, but we do get charged for the kids that play in our program as well.
Yep.
That $15 fee or whatever,
16, yeah.
or whatever it is.
What's their justification for charging a fee for the kids if they're charging us?
Well, cause it's in their
already?
fee schedule.
Is that if, for the kids that are not, is it every kid?
Every kid that
Yeah.
participates in our program that
Yeah.
utilizes their school.
Yeah. It's the same fee that they charge CYSC and all the other youth sport groups in town to use their fields.
Okay.
It's in their fee schedule. We build that in now to our,
So like we'll give them a roster, say it's 300 youth basketball players. We'll give them our total, they'll invoice us $16 times 300 and then we pay them.
And is that,
That's so unacceptable.
Where is
The
that-
schools are such a
So we-
racket.
we have that absorbed into our registration fee, so it's
Yeah,
not
so
like,
they charge more.
yeah.
Right, that was the question they asked. They asked, so if we didn't charge you that additional fee, would you reduce your rates? And we said yes, because we passed it along right
Right.
now. So absolutely, that's where we
It's
left
so
it.
terrible, I mean, a janitor, if they need janitorial services, whether there's 10 people or 30, it doesn't really make a difference, they're still charging the same.
What's the
their
percentage
fee.
of our fee to the families? Based on, what's the school percentage?
So what do we charge a student for basketball?
I think maybe it's 165.
Yeah,
It sounds about
I
right.
think that's right, I just paid for it, I
Yeah,
think
it's
165.
so,
So it's
We-
10%.
Right, but that's the $15 fee. In addition to
Well-
that, we're covering custodial and we're covering
Mhm.
rentals.
They don't-
Let me
they-
ask you a question,
Right.
does
They don't
Newcastle
understand.
travel basketball, I'm assuming they also pay a fee,
Yes.
so now I'm paying
Yes.
actually 3 times
For the same
because- for the same thing. So my son's doing rec basketball at West Orchard, basketball at Bell, and then I'm paying school taxes, so 3 times.
And you're also paying janitorial fees and everything else.
sorry.
No, it's
No,
just,
no,
we're
no,
just
no,
trying
no,
to
it's
make
an
sure,
example of
we're just trying to make sure we understand.
Only municipalities who does that, who is charged by a school district.
I mean, these are our
We've been trying to stop
recreation
it for
programs
years.
that are,
And there's other,
supposed to be affordable.
right, other districts have other
I don't know that this
arrangements
is really the right
with their-
time to get into that, cause I don't think anything's
Yeah.
finished.
But anyway,
But now we all understand what we're talking about.
We're discussing in the budget, and frankly, the public has the right to know what the school district is doing.
No, I mean, understanding the fee structure is one thing, but what other towns are doing, I don't,
It's all relevant.
it feels like it should move on.
No, it's relevant that other municipalities don't get charged the fee we do, so it's important to
Yeah,
know.
we have-
There's a better
is it
way to
youth
have
fitness
a
instead of-
Yeah, youth fitness, yeah.
Yeah,
22.
And in there we have, our dance programs and then the cost of chapel bus. So people who want their kids to go from the schools to our programs at the art center, community center, or here for rec field or basketball program, they could sign up and take a bus. It's
We pay for the busing, or did they pay for the?
they pay, so we take the registration, it's a $12 charge, but that charge is dictated by Chapel
So
Transportation.
it's just pass through basically?
Correct.
Mhm.
Yep, absolutely.
You on to camps now?
Yep, I have camps. So, I don't think we had any. Our travel camp supplies is going up, because we do 5 trips 5 days a week now.
Yep.
Instead of 4, which was, actually, we did it for the first time this year and was a big hit, everybody really appreciated it.
Okay, great.
So that's what that increase is.
Did you also talk about increasing, were you increasing the registration for camps?
So we haven't had a formal discussion yet, but it's been a while since we've done an increase. With travel camps a little different because that increased this year because we knew we were doing the extra day, so we make sure that we cover those expenses. But as far as day camp and tots, we haven't done an increase in, I say pre-COVID.
I think so.
Yeah,
Mm.
so we just,
you know, we haven't had a formal discussion on
The
that.
travel camp, did we talk about also that maybe were we going to add spots to that? That's a big increase. I thought the discussion was that like adding another bus?
Yeah, that's
Because-
the issue is that you have to then pay for another bus,
Yeah,
right?
another whole bus.
Because we
Travel
didn't,
camp?
and we didn't
Yeah.
have enough kids on the wait list to
To
necessitate
justify,
another
right,
bus.
yeah. Cause you really need to fill a full bus in
Right,
order
to make it
to
worth it.
justify the cost.
Mm-hmm.
So we always, it's kind of a game time decision because we don't know. I don't wanna build that expense in and then we don't need it type of thing, you know what I'm saying? And if we need it, we always have the revenue coming in to cover it.
Yeah, I mean, right, so correspondingly, it's the revenue and the expense are on both sides of that, so if you have the expense, you'll also have the revenue associated with it, and if you don't, then you just won't have the revenue, so it's not exactly a one-to-one, but it's correlated pretty
Yeah.
closely.
But yeah, travel camp did well last year. Which shows in our numbers, it's nice turnout for that. So, but no, yeah, there was nothing significant as far as, other than that, I don't think the camp for next year.
Where's the travel camp supplies? That's the bus?
So the supplies is all the tickets, so all of that, and the bus is included in there as well.
Okay.
But it's,
Yeah, tickets was the highest number.
yeah, the tickets for all the trips is where a majority of that expense. Yeah, I think tickets and then, I didn't break that, I think tickets and transportation is
Yep.
close behind that as far as our expense goes. Actually, that takes up, between the two of them, takes up almost the whole lot. Any questions, comments with camp? No? Okay.
So that's really our ski program. We just did ski registration today and
Sold out.
Yeah,
Less
first
than-
minute.
Great.
Yeah, in less than 2 minutes, it's sold out.
Yep, so
Really?
yeah.
Oh my god.
All of the trips?
So you have to buy it as a package of 5.
Mhm.
So we have 93 kids in the program. We originally took 80 and then we had a pretty large wait list. So we had some room to take some kids off the wait list and we already reached out to them. So we had 93 kids sign up. So brought in about 46,500 today. And then 8 of them are taking lessons.
I've heard that for years, that if you wanted to go on the ski program, you have to sign up right away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's.
It's grown.
It's grown quite a bit over the last couple of years.
When I got here, and we brought it, I know they used to have a program prior to me coming in 2020, we brought it back. We had 1 bus and now we're up to 2
Oh, it
buses.
stopped for a while.
Oh, for a long while.
Yeah, it was-
Yeah.
I can't remember
Well,
before
that
you
just
guys
goes to show
were
how
here.
long I've had kids in there.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
still
it
have
was-
you have a trailing car, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
bring another car.
yeah, you'll be getting that memo soon.
Efficient.
Authorization to,
Okay.
to take the town vehicle.
Yeah.
Out of town.
Yes, you can take the one with the rusted bed.
Perfect. Perfect.
Leave it on the way.
Yeah, whoever break down.
Yeah, so we were pretty excited to see how that went
That's excellent,
today.
great.
Yeah, that was great.
I know it would sell out, but 2 minutes. That's like
Yeah,
Taylor Swift
I
concert.
thought the
that's
same-
what we used that example a few times with some parents today. I was like, I can't even, get it. So yeah, it was exciting to watch it happen. So. Yep. All right, and that's it for teens, and then we have adult rec. I think the thing that sticks out, in the overtime line, we're taking it out because we don't do overtime in that.
Yeah, what used to happen in some of these smaller departments is they go through our rec supervisors and rec department staff were charged for each program. And really, the way they operate, there's nobody dedicated to any one program. They kind of mix and match. So it's all just in the rec admin, which was the very first section that we talked about. So all of that stuff has been pushed out of there, and because there were expenses in 2021, it still shows up on the budget. You won't see it next year, but you won't see that on it.
Any questions about that? Alright, seniors. We try to provide at least 1 trip a month, if not, if we could do 2, depending on which month it is and, driver availability and so forth. The one thing that definitely you know, I have a nice long list of places they'd like to go to, so we're gonna start putting that on the calendar for 2024. So we're looking forward to that. We did get our bus came in, so it's at DPW. They have to get it registered and so forth. So we're waiting on that, and then hopefully we'll be able to take it on trips for next year.
It's great.
Yeah, we're
So
excited.
thank you for that.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
it's a pretty bus, very pretty.
Yeah.
It's really nice. So excited.
And I do wanna just quickly, give a lot of credit to Christine with our senior program over the last couple of years. She's done a great job increasing the programming and handling all the suggestions from our seniors.
Very opinionated,
We don't have any.
With a smile on her face and attending all the senior activity group meetings and things like that, so. I just wanna make sure she gets the credit she deserves for.
They're an active bunch, you know, and they just love being part of the community and they wanna keep active and do stuff. The PBA held a really nice luncheon the other day and we had 60 people register. I know it was a little rainy that day in the morning, so not quite 60 came, but it was still 45 plus that came. So it was really nice to see that kind of turnout. And then we even have some of our seniors, they volunteer and teach programs during the day. So today, there was a music program that 2 of our seniors run, that's pretty well attended. We have another gentleman that runs trivia, and he has 15 people coming to his class. We have a knitting and crocheting group, and then we even had the garden club who helped do our gardening on Tuesdays. And they were just featured in one of the magazines downstairs. I'll make copies and circulate it. Beth just gave it to me today. It was a nice article, so it's nice to see even the seniors giving back and volunteering within the program, so. Yeah.
I forget his name. Does the really happy guy teach anything?
The laughing yoga.
Oh, the laughing yoga, yeah.
Yeah.
So, on Fridays, if not once, but twice a month, he'll come and he was here last Friday.
That's great.
Yeah, and that's volunteer too. He goes to multiple places now, Pisco, some other hospitals, nursing homes. Yeah, he's got good energies.
My youngest loved them.
Yeah, all
He
ages.
happened to be here one day over the summer when they were open.
Ice cream social.
Yeah, an ice cream social. That was like the first thing he told me about. He's like, you gotta see this, it's hysterical. I'm like, well, good. It's supposed to be.
Yeah, he attracts all ages. It's great. It's great. And then the last one is social services. You know, this is really Bess and the home delivered meals, and then also our drivers. And we have drivers that work Monday through Friday, pretty much 9 to 3, probably later than that. Sometimes they'll come in earlier. They really try to accommodate everyone. It's almost like a la carte. But we're taking people, our priority is we want them to come to our programs. So, you know, someone could sign up Monday through Friday and we're going to get them and bringing them to, you know, aerobics or to play bridge or whatever it is, doctor's appointments and so forth. So that's what this line really covers.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
I was saying, I didn't realize that we had to pay a part of SNAP, I didn't realize that.
Oh, yeah.
I thought
Always.
I thought they'd be funded from the state or the fed.
I can't imagine our reimbursement covers 100%.
It does not, no. We do get reimbursed for a portion of it, but not.
Yeah, and it's a weird
And
calculation.
it's weird, and it's really weird, the timing of the payment. I don't even know if we've received anything this year, and then all of a sudden I'll get like 9 months worth in one payment, and then, you know, it's just odd.
I'm just happy we get reimbursed at all, so.
Yeah, it's not 100% this
So that $42,000 is actually less.
year. It's less. The net would be less, yeah.
How many individuals does
Meals on
that
Wheels?
represent, do you know?
Sure. So I would say on average we have 15 per day. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it could go down depending on the need. But I feel like 15 is generally what that is. And we rely on Bess puts together an entire, like right now she'll have the year schedule for next year of volunteers that do the entire year.
So for 15, it costs that much, I can't fathom how much it costs for a much larger municipality. Who's
Right,
using
yeah.
that service.
There may be a different formula
Oh, okay.
depending upon your
Sense of justice or
yeah,
something.
gross income of the community, like.
Makes sense.
So it's
I
quite
can't-
expensive for 15 people, that's a lot.
Yeah,
What's our reimbursement rate, did you say?
So how many, so we,
Oh,
We service 15, probably per day, and they are getting 2 meals a day, and then on the weekend coverage for Saturday and Sunday, so.
Yeah, on Friday we do a bulk delivery basically.
right, because well, and also if there's gonna be inclement weather.
Yeah.
So
We hired-
during COVID, we were really conscientious, like our drivers only came in 1 or 2 days a week, and we made sure that everybody was left with like a week's worth of food.
It actually got to the point where it's just full-time staff was actually
So doing it right,
all the
you're right,
deliveries.
I've gotten that,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
And they were just taking turns doing the meals, because we just want to make sure that people had food.
and we always have, Beth always makes sure that we have, boxes of emergency meals. That, so if it is inclement weather or anything like that, we always have a supply that we can get to our residents if we need to.
Still we're reimbursed.
So,
So out of the reimbursement of 42,000, that is our expense, we get back 27.5 about from the county. That's not terrible. It's definitely not 100% financed.
I'm confident that larger municipalities than this. Understandable. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to afford it to,
Yeah,
so
that's why I look at those numbers per place. Well, that's why it's a formula, right? So
Yeah.
it probably does the larger cities.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a torture formula, yes.
Alright. Any other questions for Rec?
So just to keep the board up to speed, we did put in a grant application through either Chris Burdick or Peter Huckham's office, forgive me, I forget which one now, a SAM grant for bathrooms at Amsterdam. And also to try to take and improve some of the indoor space, and we're waiting. It very possibly it was Senator Huckham. We did a perk test, didn't come out so great. We're doing another one.
In the beginning of November when soccer season
yeah,
is
once-
over.
Soccer season goes off to see whether or not we can do it, because ideally we'd love to be able to use the trailers, those bathroom
Right.
trailers, and just being able to reclaim some of that indoor space that right now is just being used for storage. And so we're slowly gonna work on some of those rooms. The whole idea that when there's a thunderstorm and those kids have to be, taken someplace safe is it's too hard on parents, and it ruins the summer for kids, and who who's gonna,
Well, it's not safe either.
So anyway, so we're working on it. Ideally, we would love to be able to have sufficient indoor space. I mean, it's great that we're able to, rent school space, but the kids are in school, those school buildings all year long. To be able to get them someplace else, Amsterdam is such a spectacular property, to be able to have them stay there. So we're working on it, it's not gonna be a one and done thing, but we are gonna try to just, chip away at it a little bit and just see what we can do for improvements. So I'm hopeful about that.
fingers crossed.
Yeah, definitely.
When do we hear back about that?
So we-
Grant?
Yeah, same rate, I don't know, with
Probably later this year, early next year, but the most important thing is that perk test.
and I believe the next one we do will be with the county. It will be an official test and then
Okay.
we'll.
And hopefully it hasn't rained for, 28 days straight
Good luck.
to do it.
It's been a tough summer to hold a perk test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not ideal.
Bordering a wetland on top of everything else, so.
Yeah.
So, fingers crossed, hopefully it goes well.
Anyway, thank you guys, and I will just wanna do just a separate shout out to Christine for juggling everything while Ike was out for a bit there, you did a fabulous job, and everybody noticed and we really appreciate it, so.
Definitely.
Yes.
Thank you.
Team up for you.
Definitely.
A good
And now you're
Good
back,
hand.
so enough of slacking off.
Well, actually, I asked her if it was okay if I could come back, I don't wanna ruin the mojo.
Should we wait to your office?
Yeah.
I should have put streamers up. Sorry.
It's now the storage for
Yeah.
soccer, everything else,
Yeah.
we'll be able to get into the place.
So,
Alright,
alright.
we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a good night.
we have this very demanding town clerk receiver of taxes.
Yes.
All this money.
This is where all the money is.
Page
So after that, I never-
73 or 19?
I didn't have a chance to bake a pie.
You're so funny.
I'm not feeling a little bright. No, I
It's not a good look for the
Yeah,
receiver of
pass it
taxes.
down.
That's the bribery down there.
Halloween textbook.
What's it worth to you? I wanna, push,
It's incentivizing,
I just wanna keep
Incentivizing
everyone
clerk.
alert, you
Yes.
know?
That's important.
Awake when I
I'm
talk
sorry,
about
we're starting with
something.
tax or clerk?
Receiver.
What page did you say, I'm sorry?
73?
Pretzels, does your house get egged?
I'm not giving them out, they're here.
Okay.
Are those from us?
No.
Oh, gosh, the stores had the Halloween
You
stuff
need
out
some
in
of the stuff
July.
to for us?
Yes, they did.
73?
What is your wish?
So it's pretty straightforward, it's kinda similar to Josh's budget, you know, take the quotes and salaries, kind of thing, you'll take a look at, you can see the, there's an increase in longevity that's contractual. And, contractual services are,
2.1%, I don't know, Christine.
yeah,
That's
it's
not
just,
bad.
they're just the computer programs that we use to help us collect taxes. So that's that. And then if we can move on to the town clerk,
Town clerk.
yeah,
Probably 84. No, you got a
86.
description.
86.
86, yep, or 25.
Food and efficiency, we love you.
okay. So. So similar, you know, comment, longevity is contractual. The big jump is 100% in dues, so, but it really only reflects
Yeah, that's a good job.
$125, and that's really for Lauren to try to, so in our office, it's myself, Lauren, and Patty Antucci, which I think you've met, she's been here for I think 26 years, she's just a pleasure to work with, and she's super confident and patient and kind with all of our customers, and Irene, who's our relatively new hire, one of our COVID babies. So everything that happens with the four of us, and we're a great team, right, Lauren?
They are, they're an amazing team.
Yeah,
There's always cute dogs in there.
Yes. We have candy and puppies, and we try to do everything. Anyway, so that is.
It's true.
That's
all-
I know, but.
You didn't bring the puppies?
I should hang out there more.
So then one thing that I did wanna talk about, which really falls under the town clerk umbrella, is train station parking. So during COVID, we slid the date to a renewal in December, mid-December. I'd like to return to the original date. I think it would be, I think it's just better for our residents, better for our office, because the original date is
Didn't we vote on that already?
We did, I just wanted to talk about it, just formalize it, because we also talked about new rates, and that would be part of the budget. So just kind of like our last thing, just to underline it and make sure that we're all set for that.
Yeah, and just a reminder, the reason we had moved it during COVID, we were just hoping to, well, nobody knew at the beginning, we thought 2 weeks and we were back ready to go, and then it was 2 months, and then it was much more. So we were trying to squeeze any revenue that we could out of it, hoping that if we could get some revenue in by the end of the year, that would be great, and never materialized in 2020, and really not much in 2021 either. So it really, once we're back, probably not to the same volume that we were before, but we're getting there, really puts a burden on Christina's office to do that in December. They have tax collection that time, and it's just, it's not a great time.
And
So.
just an aside, the merchants actually hate it.
Yeah.
It's their busy time of year, and then we're bugging them to come in and do parking permits,
Mhm.
like, we gotta be kidding.
Yep, and everyone's so traveling or, you know, holidays, so it's just not a good time. And that's another side is occasionally they'll use student help if the volume is really high, and that's really hard to get. mid-December.
The
So
ones are in
June
place.
is a little easier to get and help. So the proposed,
Thank you.
thank you. The proposed increases in the rates, so it's $500 would go to $550, $40 for meter would go to $50, senior meter would go from $20 to $25. We haven't had an increase in at least 8 years, I think it's closer to 10 years. And also people would be getting this 6-month free because we've extended that fourth quarter.
And that was including resident and non-resident.
So yeah, so the non-resident amount is $1,300 currently. And if we stick with that, then it's $1,350. We're not sold out with resident permits.
None.
With non-resident permits. There was a time where it goes to a lot of, yeah. So we can still sell more.
But you know, the pay by day non-permit parking has been filled every day.
Yes, yes.
And we actually increased the
Not
number.
anymore, because I park there still, cause I go a couple times a week, and, you know, sometimes 5 times. Don't tell me the price, I know she's on permit. But it's, when it was moved to the back, when it was in the front, I would routinely not be able to get a spot,
Right.
but in the back, I find that there's spots.
Yeah,
Oh,
nice,
really?
a nice byproduct of moving it was that more people
We increased
purchased.
it significantly.
We increased the number of spots and so a lot of people bought
Oh,
the annual
I'm
permit
sorry.
because they wanted to be
It should,
closer.
because I sometimes go in twice a week, and I went 5 days a week, and what the heck did I do, or I'll get a ride, because I'm tired of doing this, so it's-
Yeah.
I'm so troubled.
So people finally just said, oh, you know, that was my reason to come and finally buy the annual permit. So that is what I would, we would propose, and thank you for your support. Like I said, I had just blessed to work with wonderful ladies, and only one which you see here today on the big screen.
So the master fee schedule will be circulated and will be approved as part of the organizational meeting in January. And that'll reflect the increases in the parking permits, and that gets posted to our website, and that's the way that we alert our residents that our rates have gone up. One of the ways.
Is there any questions or anything?
No, but thank you for the
Thank you.
talks.
Yeah, thank you.
It's my pleasure. I gotta up my game, gotta start making bacon and shit. Alright, well, thank you, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Alright.
So next, that's left are just kind of the really smaller budgets that Jill and I kind of put together, town board, town supervisor, town administrator, comptroller's office. So I think
I don't think there's been an
what,
increase in
49?
any of them other than.
Yeah, not a heck of a lot of changes in these lines.
Okay, the only thing that there is notable on the training and instruction is we did put in some significant dollars in administration for training and instruction.
That's in your admin.
Yeah, in the admin.
I was just gonna go through them straight.
Oh, okay, go
Just
please.
to see if anybody had any
Okay.
questions, but this is the lines that kind of fall under the town board. We've left some of the things, special projects, special events, CREI, boards and commissions, kind of the same as they have been. Newcastle Community Media Center, that is the annual, I guess, funding for the NCCMC. We do kind of pay them a la carte for some of the web services, et cetera, and that falls under the IT lines. But the annual, I don't know if I call it stipend, but the annual funding of NCCMC comes out of this line.
What's the difference between special project and special event?
Projects might be anything in the board, events is the volunteer recognition dinner. What's the one thing that we sometimes have to pay for?
WMLN.
Yeah, that's just a municipal thing.
Yeah, certain events like that. Projects could be for the sign, the electronic sign was paid for on a special projects line. Really not a huge distinction, I mean, it really could probably be interchangeable. Just moving the next page over, 50 is community beautification supplies. This is really where the BAB stuff kind of falls. This is where the snowflakes, the garland, the holiday lighting, the hanging baskets in the spring, those kind of things are charged to these lines. 51, next I'll go back to the contingency account. So we typically have $150,000 in this line each year. You see, it never shows as being spent because basically what happens is we allocate it through budget adjustments, and you'll see that prior to the audit, you'll see a memo from me allocating the contingency funds. It was bumped up in 2023 because at that time we were out of contract for both the CSEA and PBA. And so we had anticipated increases into that line, and that's why it was so large then. And it's also why you'll see in the salary lines, when I talked about the CSEA increase was 2.25, but yet you'll see a higher number in there. Last year it wasn't budgeted in the salary line because I didn't know what it was going to be, so it was in contingency. So the placeholder was still in the budget, it just wasn't in each line. So next year I go back to the normal 150,000, and that kind of sits there. If there's something that the board chooses to spend at the end of the year, it hasn't been spent, and we decide to a project that doesn't fit somewhere else. Also legal fees, most years that doesn't happen. We've had some years during the Chappaqua Crossing years, during the form-based code years, we've had some years where we have to dip into the contingency line to help fund legal fees. So that's kind of the rationale why that line is there. Let's see, where am I going to? Town supervisor line.
Sure.
57, 58. So not much there, just some of the town historian expense.
That's actually cleaning the
Horace
Greeley
Greeley statue. Yeah. And any of the plaques that Gray submits charged to that line. The Memorial Day parade, we've kind of charged 9/11 remembrance to that line as well.
And last year we also charged the new banners. The veterans banners, which by the way are gonna be coming down right after November, right after Veterans Day. And we'll have to re-up the program again in a year, but that's where that came out.
62.
62. Town administrator. Jill, anything you want to cover on
Just
really training hard.
Yeah.
well,
You're training 333% harder.
yeah,
0.33.
so there's some training that was recommended to us.
Okay.
leadership management?
Leadership
type training?
management,
Yes.
things like that we need to institute.
Okay.
So that's
The first people we reached out to wouldn't quite fit in the 65.
Oh my
$100,000 one. I don't think it would have fit in 10 times that line.
Really? They wanted
yeah.
that much?
Wow.
It-
speech.
astronomical, like not. And I
You know,
said to him, do people?
Consulting fees.
I said, do municipalities our size engage you? Because I can't imagine that somebody has a leadership or a management training budget of
Six
in excess
figures.
of $100,000 for, it just, yeah, what could you possibly
What was the
tell us?
response?
That sounds like
He said they did,
You said they did, I said,
said-
well, I'm sorry, we have a 2% cap.
And-
So the answer
And
is
his
no.
clients were like Fort Lauderdale,
Big
I think
cities.
Pinellas County or something, they were based in Florida and they had like, we're telling Newcastle, 17,000, 18,000 residents, like this.
Well, there's gotta be other consultants.
Yes, so we're
Clearly.
seeking
Yeah.
otherwise.
Okay.
Let's see,
Liability insurance.
Insurance is really.
it's gonna
Talk
continue.
about that.
So you're going to see liability insurance is actually in a lot of budgets because we apportion that throughout all the different funds. You'll see it in highway and water and refuse, parking district, and they're all gonna see sharp increases. We saw that last year. We have no reason to expect it to go down. Keeping it somewhat close to what it is this year would be fantastic.
Yeah. Again, something we have no control over, I wish we did, I wish somebody would walk in and say, oh, your training program is problematic, so if we fix it, it would fit, it's not.
Well, I mean, it's based on our experience and we've had like 3 of the more horrific years that we could have
Ever.
imagined on them, so. hoping
The good
things
news,
have.
yeah, the good news is that we're hoping that not to be, renting a standby generator too much longer.
Yes.
Excited about that.
67.
Okay, 67 is the Comptroller's office, my budget.
Another biggie.
Not a whole lot there. The overtime line, Diana from my office, she actually supports the clerks. She works every Thursday evening within the court, so she's charged to me. Maintenance and repair, that's going up a bit for me. That's KVS, which is my accounting software, and as we're seeing in a lot of support agreements, that's going up quite a bit, and KVS is no different than anything else.
What are the contractual services? That you know? I know it's a small number, but I'm just curious.
What is that repair for like the
For the copy machine.
machines and stuff like that, yeah.
Okay.
Next line 68 is the audit. I think 2024 represents the final year under contract with O'Connor Davies. So we know what that number is going forward. We will get a revised quote from them going forward, and that would be for 25. Just this central services line, and this is where we kind of charge stuff that is really applicable to the entire town hall: telephone charges, cell phone charges, postage. That's not apportioned out by department. It doesn't make sense within the general fund to do that. It's more calculation and it's the same tax base, so there's really no reason to go into any more detail than that. 4050 is public health. So this is where we charge the Newcastle United for Youth. You'll see the expenditures total 125,000. That's the exact amount of the grant. So it's a trade-off. Whatever we actually spend is what we'll receive in revenue. Typically we don't get near the 125, and especially we came a lot closer prior to COVID, and that kind of changed some things in the events that they were able to schedule, and so that has changed over the years, but we're in year 7 or 8. I think 2024 might be year 8.
Fabulous that they're willing to continue to do it.
Yeah.
So are they still using that money with our staff person at the school? That's where the money,
No,
counselor?
No.
Oh.
not at the school.
We,
No, we
They
pay, yeah, they have a staff person that, I don't know the exact title, it's kind of like the coordinator, I think the program coordinator, that's here
And
that
that's
might.
for the town.
Through. Yes, well,
Yes.
through Newcastle United. Yeah.
We pay, they're paid as an independent contractor on voucher.
There was a
Right.
time that they had paid for a portion of.
Student assistance services, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
that's
but-
what I'm,
Yeah, that might be what you're thinking, they don't any longer, and I don't think they use that service any
Yeah.
longer, which is why. So I think that's it for the admin type stuff. I did wanna talk about some special districts, and I kind of talked about it, and this will, I'll go into further greater detail. Jill has a cheat sheet with all this on it, and when I do my public hearing for the budget, I go into more detail, but I wanted to talk about the tax cap and the difficulties that I had. I have on page, this is gonna rudimentary, it's not as detailed as I go into in the public hearing, but it's just kind of the calculation for the tax cap and how I arrive at it. And what the tax cap pertains to is the tax levy from the prior year. And you've got two chances to increase that. One is the tax-based growth factor, which is exactly flat, and the other is the tax cap, which is 2%, the lesser of 2% or the rate of inflation. So inflation is much more than that, but you're not allowed to have that much. So we're limited this year, and the carryover is also, as in past years, we haven't come close to the tax cap, and the carryover is larger, but then it decreases each year because you can only use a portion of what you didn't use the year before. So it's almost punitive when you're not using as much as of the cap as you can. So, you know, that left us very thin, and this year we're about $19,000 under the cap. I don't ever like to go right to the cap. I mean, the penalty is for exceeding the cap when you said you weren't going to, is that you have that much less to spend in the next year. So if you missed it by like $1,000, you just have $1,000 off your cap number for the next year, but not a good look. I wouldn't do it anyway. And
to be clear, when you're discussing that you're that close to the cap,
Yep.
that is the projected budget.
Yep.
So when you're allotting, for example, $100,000 for X and you don't use that $100,000, you're likely at the end of the day not going to be that close to the cap.
So your cap is based on your budget, not on your actuals. So you may or may not go over that number. I guess that's an incentive to maybe budget incorrectly, because you could get yourself under the cap, but it's not a realistic budget, but that's not.
Well, I think the reason why I'm asking that question is, or as a statement of fact, is residents shouldn't think, for example, we have an issue with the generator and all of a sudden that costs us X amount of dollars and we can't afford it because we're hitting the cap.
Correct.
So people should not think that that's what that means.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Yeah.
sort of getting to.
Exactly. So the one thing that the levy, that the tax cap applies to is every single fund. It's not just the general fund. So on page 3 is a summary of all the funds that we have. So when you're talking about the tax rate, which is the general and highway fund combined, which is the only tax that applies to everybody in town. Some of them apply to most people. The water district, the refuse district applies to all residential, some of the sewer districts, but the general and highway is the only one that applies to the whole town. But everything else is included in the tax cap. So for example, if you scroll down, if you look down to here, Northern Sewer District, that's new this year. We didn't have that last year. So that's $50,000 that had to be added to the budget. That's the sewer district up at Chappaqua Crossing that we need to begin taxing for operations and maintenance as that comes online. You know, the water department does inspections of that, and when presumably a new sewer district doesn't need to be, you shouldn't need that much maintenance, but ultimately we will be, and we'll need to start building a fund balance to be able to pay for that when it happens. Another district that had some significant increases, and let's see, it's the Northern Fire Protection District. So we talked about this a couple years ago. That is page 216. So this is the portion of the town that Newcastle Fire and Millwood Fire doesn't reach, and so we contract with Village of Mount Kisco, Village and Town of Mount Kisco, to provide fire protection services. If you remember, maybe about 5 years ago, they started renovating their firehouses, and we were
disproportionately paying.
Yes.
So we felt, yes. So they actually ended up having to borrow a second time because the project was larger than they had expected. So when they borrowed for the first time, 3 or 4 years ago, we raised the taxes for the first time, and now we're paying for the second borrow. So you'll see if you look at our taxes going up almost, it's going up $120,000 in that district. Yeah, and that's something
And that's borne upon how many residents? How many homes?
I couldn't tell you.
Not off the top of my head.
It's not quite a third of the.
It's what, Kisco Park?
It's a fair amount of people. It's not just Kisco Park. It's all the it's Kisco Park, it's Bittersweet, it's
Deer Creek.
Deer Creek,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a decent amount of homes.
it's a chunk of it. Yeah, it's bigger than you think. I will get numbers for you. And what the kicker is that in some areas, Millwood Fire is actually closer than Mount Kisco, because we went to Mount Millwood, and we went to Chappaqua Fire Company and we asked them, we said, look, these are Newcastle residents. They are closer to you than Mount Kisco is as a responder. You know, it's additional revenue for you to take it, and they just didn't feel that their numbers could support additional homes.
And
they
those,
said,
and
long
those
ago was that?
residents who are in this fire
4
district,
years ago.
can they all vote? Or they can't because
No,
of the
and
Newcastle
so this is
can't vote?
so this is a little bit of, it's not a little bit, it's a lot of the rub, is that, so we have been told that our residents have the right to vote. But they don't.
Wow.
They just don't.
I remember it was thinking about a year,
Yeah.
it was longer ago.
Yeah, it
No,
was a couple years
actually,
ago.
yeah, it was pre-COVID, because we reached out to
Yeah, when they hit us with
all
this,
the fire
we were
departments
like, okay, we need to find
to
a
say if there was like an
alternative.
alternative, and just basically say, I'll pull people out of Northern.
And there truly was.
Do we have any option, so if we're paying what, $120,000 in taxes?
It's not even we, it's
No.
small.
Well, this small group, I guess, is there any opportunity to take any of that money and pay it to our fire departments to try to get them to increase?
No, we would have changed the boundaries
districts,
is what
yeah.
we should have done, is what
Yeah.
we tried to do. But
They said-
none of the fire districts felt that they had the
Bandwidth.
to take.
No, I know, but to help them get that bandwidth, is
It's
there
not
any
the
reason?
volunteers. The problem is
I
they
know.
don't have they don't have the.
We had all those conversations, we talked to, didn't we talk to North Castle?
Yep.
To see if
And Mount Kisco is like a paid fire department.
No, they're not paid.
They just, their budget runs through the town as opposed
It's
to
just a
their
different
individual
structure altogether,
budgets.
but it is volunteers, but it's just a different place,
Yeah.
and they have.
Yeah.
And so this, unfortunately, this is what this is, and one of the reasons why Northern went up in addition is they increased their LoSAP benefits.
They did.
To their fire department, which is of course borne by the district, which is fine, absolutely fine, that's how they make sure that they have a resilient volunteer force. And it's, you know, it's gonna be a good segue into what Rob's gonna talk about.
So is the fire district and the Northern Fire Protection District, like, is that something that can be easily revisited, say when Chappaqua does their renovation and maybe
Sure, but
this
Chappaqua on the wrong, it's
Yeah,
it's not far,
It's on the right
it's
far,
kind of
yeah.
on the wrong side.
Well, I mean, I guess my question is just more like, how difficult is it to make the change? If like this LoSAP goes in and it makes it more attractive and more people want to join.
So
or-
LoSAP is only gonna, so our fire departments currently have LoSAP, it's
Oh,
for
it's for
only
CVAC,
for
right.
and it's the Millwood side of the town that we would need to be able to take in, expand their territory, and they just didn't
So
feel
they
comfortable.
just
they
need more
had just-
volunteers, they have enough equipment, they have enough space.
Maybe, and I have to tell you that you know, there is a very strong mutual aid that runs through the organizations, and they didn't feel comfortable. You know,
I also
changing-
think,
If something
the
changed
chief may have said something, about if one's a volunteer and one's a paid, they can't have mutual aid, I don't wanna, so to that effect, am I
No,
mistaken?
I just think it affects it affects the integrity of your department. So what happens is that once you introduce paid, your volunteer falls off. Because they feel, why should
Well,
people,
people should realize the value of our volunteers so much, and
Yeah.
the astronomical costs, and
Saves us a ton of money.
absolutely.
yes, but it's that
Which is why we are offering LoSAP now to our CVAC volunteers.
we hope to be, so.
So sorry, back to
Yes,
my
there's
original
no
question,
other-
which was if something changed in the future, how
We could
hard is
absolutely,
it?
we would have to change special district lines. I mean, we could do it,
Mhm.
but part of it was lack of bandwidth and part of it was a reluctance to upset the apple cart, where you've got you know, you've got a loose association of you know, special districts that are working very collaboratively together and they don't wanna step on anybody's toes, so I appreciate that as well. I was only looking at it from the bottom line and trying to figure out how to get my residents out from under a tax that, not that they weren't receiving a benefit for, but that they just were never able to vote on.
Yeah.
And we felt like it was a little bit disproportionate to the way they apportioned things.
They do it straight by ad valorem, and because of that, I still believe that we end up with the lion's share.
Definitely.
And I thought it was
Property values are
very,
higher, so.
Definitely.
Yeah, that makes sense.
and so we are also in a consortium called WEMS, which is Westchester EMS. And WEMS covers a number of municipalities, including Kisco, and they don't do it straight ad valorem. It's ad valorem, square miles, and call volume, which I thought was really important. So it includes Somers. Well, Somers, because of Heritage Hills, has a higher volume than some other communities, and so they felt that that was an equalizing. Now, what we tried to show is that Mount Kisco, because of the density, had a higher call volume than we did, and we shouldn't be charged ad valorem because the number of occupants. Anyway, we went through all that, it fell on deaf ears, we tried. Could we try again? Sure. After, and you should keep it in your back pocket. I mean, when Shopify is up and running and it has a vibrant, force, then it feels like it can take on the world, I would absolutely take and revisit this. It doesn't mean that it's a closed book forever by any stretch of imagination.
And I know the two departments work together really collaboratively, trying to
They're
have
fabulous.
with volunteers and stuff like that. So, one benefit in Chappaqua might end up spilling over to Mill. I just wanted to know if it was
No,
once it's
it's
established, it's really difficult or.
No, we could change it.
Good to know.
Just
So-
won't be today.
I appreciate you entertaining my question though.
Yeah, no.
I'm on page 205 now, or you can look up on the screen, and Jill talked about segueing into the LoSAP program. So we spoke about the LoSAP program multiple times, and I think we're gonna hear a little bit from Lino about the logistics of it in executive session. But just the budgetary implications. So when we talked last, we showed the projection per year was $60,000 if we begin now. So Jill went back and spoke to CVAC, and they really felt adamantly about wanting to again request that we included the retroactive pay, the retroactive component of it, which is $50,000 a year for 5 years. We go back 5 years retroactively. We had a good conversation. We explained the tax cap implications, the difficulties that we were having, but they really felt, I think, like it was a slap in the face to current and longtime members if we were gonna, only do this to for new members.
Entice new members and not reward people that.
So as a bit of an offset, what we kind of spoke about was getting a contribution from CVAC to help offset the retro. So we actually had that conversation after I printed and calculated my budget. So right now, what I had done for that extra 50,000 is I took it, we had some amount of fund balance, not a huge amount, but we had some fund balance and I could cover that amount with. What I'm gonna be able to do if and I think the commitment was 25,000 a year for the next 2 years to be able to do that and kind of get us through this tax cap problem. So I can use 25,000 in fund balance each of the next 2 years and $25,000 contribution from them and kind of get them to where they want to be.
We need to talk about whether that's what we want. I mean, we voted against that. It's a
Well,
lot of money.
I don't think we voted.
Well, no, we didn't vote, but we discussed it and kind of came to the conclusion that that was not money we could spend right now.
Right,
And
right.
I understand that they're asking for it, I would too, but given that we're $19,000 under the tax cap, it makes me a little uncomfortable. And if the point of it was I understand where they're coming from, but if the point of LoSAP is really to incentivize people to join the ambulance corps, then retroactive doesn't really help to incentivize people to join the ambulance corps.
Our CVAC people have been.
I was gonna say at the same time, if it can work and the numbers can make happen, it's not just incentivizing. There are people who have sacrificed and saved lives, and as we just said moments ago.
I understand
But
that.
for our fire services that are volunteer, we'd be in a bad spot, so if it can happen, if we can find the dollars, then I think we should, but yes, it is a concern from us.
Yeah,
and I also-
I mean, I understand the need and why we would want it, and we wanna do everything we can to incentivize them, I just know we discussed it, we have to look at it from a fiscal perspective as
I
well.
understand that was before Ralph put the numbers together, and I think if we can make the numbers work, I would respect the members of CDAC that are asking to help retain those members who have the institutional knowledge and have been there and have work, because
And by the way, we're there during COVID,
I mean,
so
I just,
if we can make it work, I support it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, we did talk about it, but we didn't have the numbers in front of us. I mean, I agree that in general, we really need to be fiscally responsible, and so I take that really seriously. On the other hand, they're saving us a ton of money on top of saving us. So, you know, for giving to some and then there's some just been there and getting nothing, you know, I guess on balance, I see both sides, and I would just go ahead and give them the money, or maybe split the difference, I don't know.
Well, that's what
I'm assuming that if you had I'm assuming it wouldn't work, it'd be more expensive, but if you had a hybrid model, meaning those who served for a certain amount of time would be at a higher rate as opposed to, it wouldn't work.
but
Maybe they're
there's
hybrid.
the state,
Yeah.
Well, the state has limits on what can be paid. I mean, we actually opted for, we did not go to the max of what the state permits. We, in the proposal that I'm presenting, that I've included here, is $20 per month of service, I'm sorry, per year of service. $20 a month once you reach 65 per year of service in the plan with a maximum of 40 years. So you can actually max out at $800 a month for per month if you had 40 years of service in. The state will allow up to $30. So, you know, that would then be $1,200 a month. So we've actually, there's room to change that at some point. This is an actuarial estimate based on, you know, this is a defined benefit program as opposed to a defined contribution. So that contribution can change each year. I think it won't in the first 5 years. I think that's locked in, but the benefit stays the same once they retire. So based on the returns on investment, I think they have a 5.5% anticipated return on investment. So if it's higher, that's pretty conservative. I think that's lower than what the state uses for their retirement system at this point, or right about the same. So.
And we couldn't go, I mean, the retroactive, that's.
So apparently we
that's a
can't,
decision now
so
for-
one, right, so what we understand is that we can't go back and add it after. So we thought that might be an option, and it does not appear so. So once we enter the program, we have to opt for the retro or that's off the table. Because that was my first thought, because, you know, in trying to ease my calculation, I thought, okay, well, maybe if we could wait a couple of years until that smooths out and we're good, then we could add it back, and apparently we can't.
the
So
other
that's
thing is,
important.
everything that we agree upon, every aspect of this LoSAP has to be included in a resolution, and again, Leo will come to speak with us, but it has to be voted on.
Yeah.
It's a mandatory referendum. So if you wanna change something out of this program, you need to put it back to a vote.
Yeah.
Which is an ordeal.
Yeah, so to add or subtract or anything, it's a.
And where are they getting the money to reimburse us?
They have.
I mean,
Most of the stuff
they've
is
indicated they have
donations,
done, yeah,
donations.
donations.
They get some reimbursement from
Yeah, from insurance, yeah.
So just to remind the board how the budget process works, as I spoke at the beginning tonight, this represents the department head administrator recommendation. So that's why I put it in. I understand what the board initially approved, but this was the ask from them, which, not a department head, but for lack of a better word, that's their ask. At the end of this process, once you've met with everybody, we didn't have any real dissension tonight or anything that anybody said, well, maybe you could pull this out, or do we have to spend that? Some years we do, some years we don't. You might hear some stuff from Bart or the chief where we wanna add or subtract, whatever. I'll come back at the end of the process and give you a list of these things. If we add these things, here are the implications to the tax cap. Or if we add it, or if we take it off, here's how it affects the tax rate, the tax cap, et cetera. And the board will then, over the next couple weeks, have a chance before I prepare the preliminary budget to say whether or not they want any of those changes.
That would be helpful, we could look at it
Yeah.
in the context of other
Exactly.
variables in the
Yes.
whole budget.
So a decision doesn't have to be made tonight, but
Right.
So we're going back to.
I will include this.
No, we look at it and I imagine people are writing down if there are things you've heard tonight that we wanna question and potentially take
Oh,
out or
absolutely.
make,
Right, so
change. That's when we're gonna discuss it, once we've met with all of the department
Absolutely.
heads and.
And I know everybody received this at the end of last week, over the weekend. May not have had a chance to go 273 pages line by line, so this gives you a chance to go back and do that over the next couple of days or week or so. And if questions arise that we didn't cover tonight, obviously you know how to get me, and I'll answer that.
Since this is my first time through this process, what is?
Read the cheat sheet, it's helpful.
Oh, I did,
Yeah.
I did. What is the point in time when we come back, like literally, like what week do we come back, like your
So-
list of trade-offs and
We're right in here, so after we meet on Thursday, let's see, I'm away here and here, so, middle of next week, I will give you, I'll summarize how that looks, and probably a decision will need to be made. This isn't a resolution or anything like that, the board can discuss it and get back to me with their answers. We're going to adopt the preliminary budget, so I've gotta have a couple days to put that together and recalculate, so I probably need an answer in here,
okay,
1, 2, and 3,
okay.
on any of the changes. There typically aren't a ton, there might be 2, 3, 4, 5 in any given year.
But it sounds like the CVAC LoSAP one might be one we have more conversation on.
There might be, and in years past, there've been some things, this is the department heads. There are sometimes they ask for things that Jill and I say, well, we're gonna leave it in there because you asked for it, but we don't believe you should have it, and that's the board's chance. We didn't have anything like that this year, we kind of came to a consensus on everything. So,
There is one outstanding thing that may be coming through the pike, through WEMS. They're having a
Right,
meeting
yeah.
on the 24th. And that is that there was discussion, it's gotten to the point where the response time on WEMS is becoming a little concerning to some communities. And so there was talk about adding another another ambulance that would allow response time to be quicker. The compromise I think that they're gonna be floating is they hadn't really, people hadn't looked at whatever the case may be, there wasn't a full discussion of the budget, it wasn't in the numbers. And they're coming back and I think they're gonna give us additional charges it would be if it was an entire year, or if we introduced it 6 months down the road. Because there isn't a lot of activity in the dead of winter. It's more that, when weekend warriors come out and the weather gets great and people are out and being active, that's really when the ambulance time responses spike. And they were thinking that maybe they would introduce it just for 6 months the first year. So they're gonna give us those numbers and I'm gonna have to come back to the board and see if it's something that they want or don't want. I think it's the 24th.
So how would that work? So then the extra ambulance would just sit dormant? I don't
They
understand.
wouldn't hire a new ambulance driver or acquire it until,
Oh, it's a matter of a driver, not,
yeah, so
Yeah.
it's additional staffing and everything. So I think
and do
it's
they need another vehicle or no?
yes, so they would need their.
There might be lead time in that, I wouldn't imagine you could get that by January 1 now.
So they
anyway.
they may have an extra one that
Oh.
they have as a spare that they would then
Okay,
take and
okay.
use, but I think it was a $400,000 expenditure for the group. If it was an entire year, and I'm gonna have to go take a look and see, and I think 200,000 if it was just 6 months, and then we'd have to see what that would look like
So
for
yeah,
us.
if you present that, that might also change this decision on LoSAP.
All right,
I'm just
Any
waiting
other-
for
Nope, I just wanted to point out, obviously you saw that long list of things, there's quite a few special districts, not much of note in any of the other ones that change year over year. The other one that we've talked about is the refuse increase from 3 years ago, and we've had to use fund balance to kind of to level off the tax increase again because of the tax cap, so there's an increase in that again this year as was anticipated and how I laid out at the beginning. But you know, my point in bringing up all the special districts is just that these are affecting the tax cap. A lot of our increases are coming from these special districts, and we don't have a choice but to include them, which then means that I can't raise taxes in the general fund, and we're using an allocation of fund balance to do that instead. So we have a healthy fund balance. A lot of great factors last year based on, you know, some unexpected revenues, in particular the sale of 48 H Cross, which put some money in the bank, so you know, it was anticipated. I kind of poured my fund balance to be able to use it. If you remember in 2018 when we borrowed last, we used allocations of that to offset the increase in debt service, and if we need to borrow again, most likely we will. That would be a strategy again. We'll use a little bit of it this year to keep under the tax cap, and I think it's also not a great message when you're sitting on a lot of money and you're raising taxes on people when you don't have to, so you know, that's a little benefit, a slight decrease actually in the general highway fund this year. And that money, the fund balance is sitting in the general fund, so I can't use it to offset the ambulance fund or anything like that, it's not legal to do so.
Yeah, I just forwarded it to you, trying to remember, where would Gwen's expenditure be for 20? Where would it be?
205 is the first page of it, let's see.
Not on mine.
Oh.
You know, alright.
126. So that contractual service year over year, that's the actual increase year over year, which was not insignificant this year as well.
Right, yeah, that
And then if you look
at
at what's on the interfund expenses, what actually happens is it's deemed an employee benefit, so the benefits are paid out of the general fund with a transfer from this district. So that's what the 133,000. We typically transfer 23,000 for administrative costs, and the 110 would be the low step. The additional 110 is the low step.
it would be another 62,252.
62.
Mhm.
So that, if that gets approved, that might make the difference with the other expense.
And when did you say you were gonna know that?
I think we're having a meeting, what is it, this week, next week? Jill?
Yeah, I'm looking to see the 25th, the 25th.
To next.
It's
So
next
that
week,
does give me time to understand.
which is good, because then we can make a decision on that.
62 is a half year or full year?
That's a good. It's 93 is a full year. Cause I think it's that, once you get in the car and the drivers.
Yes.
Yeah, the full year is 92,260.
Alright, so I think that wraps up the budget discussion for the night.
Okay. Thank you.
Just for anybody watching at home, if they are, it is posted to the website as well as Jill's budget message. So it's up for everyone.
And we'll pick it up again on Tuesday morning.
Thursday morning, right, at 8.
And say I'm here?
Should I
Well, we're gonna have a motion to go into executive session.
And then, but we won't be
For
going
advice of
back to
counsel.
a work session or anything,
No,
so
no.
the public
Was
is
there
done.
anything else for the work session before we close the work session?
Thanks.
I think so.
We covered everything.
Second.
Well, hold on, we're just waiting for Jill to confirm.
Yep, I think that's it.
So can I have a motion to close the work session and open an executive session? Good timing.
For advice of counsel.
For advice of counsel.
How are you?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.